Ugh. Welcome to the H3H3 podcast.
I'm wondering when
I'm
you.
Ethan.
I'm Hila.
It's just Ela, right? The H is silent.
Yes, Hila then, which makes Bradley.
Our super special guest.
Super special guest,
There you go.
Ethan.
Okay.
Two Ethans. Anyways, we're the Roundabout podcast. Bradley, I'm waiting for you to run out of podcasts that you know.
It took me a little bit.
I'm expecting you'll be out by like two more episodes.
I'll probably be
shortly.
out by the next episode.
I'll throw in some things.
Or we could just be who we are, you know.
No.
No,
Confused.
Well, to be fair, why would we want to?
you're not supposed to be yourself. That's what movies
Sure.
have taught me.
Mm-hmm.
So you can send us messages at theroundaboutcast@gmail.com.
Yes.
What was that email, Bradley?
Bradley, please.
The roundabout cast@gmail.com.
There you go.
That's correct.
Yeah, I'm learning.
And, whenever questions actually come in, we'll answer those, but alas.
Our one viewer's gonna help us out.
We get views, I just don't think people like us.
Yeah, probably not.
It happens.
Yeah. One day we'll find someone that likes us. We got our boy Jamal, though.
Yo, Jamal, #1 fan.
You know who you are.
Hey, baby.
Okay,
Thinking
so
about you, Jamal.
we got a podcast full of discussions today, which I'm really this should be one of the more fun podcasts for us to do.
I'm really excited for this one.
We got three big discussions, and I'm just gonna lead in real quick with like a solo thing, and then we're gonna jump into it. And for the solo thing, it's I watched John Wick 3. I don't want to spend too much time on it,
Oh,
but
boy.
I also didn't want to just let it pass by because the movie was really good.
Did they announce a 4?
Already,
They did.
they announced the
Good
release
grief.
date.
I was really surprised because 3 just came out, didn't it?
Yes, it came out this Friday.
I guess
There's
it did
also a
well
TV
enough.
show
They're
coming
like,
out.
you know what? Fuck it. We'll do a 4th one.
I
Yeah.
mean, I am ready for more, man. It's really good. John Wick, that's a really good action franchise. I still think I like 2 the best. I'd put this one second, and I've said my problems with 1, which is why it's at the bottom, but it's still really good.
Yeah, that sounds like about what I. That's like the vibe I'm getting from most people. Like 3's still amazing. Like it's not. It ain't 2, but I mean,
That's
it's something.
surprising because I feel like I'm very alone in my liking of 2 as much as I do. Everyone I ask likes 1 the most.
I don't know. You probably have seen more John Wick discussion than I have, so.
I'll watch them and I'll give you the final verdict, Willer, and that's the one you're gonna have to take.
I will take it if it's the verdict that matches my own. All right. um. What can I say about it? It's so what I don't like about it as much as 2 is like the pacing is just a bit off. It's not as seamless as I found 2 was. But Jesus Christ, the first 30 minutes of this movie are genuinely too good. Um, they really shouldn't have made those first 30 minutes that good. That's how good it. Not that the rest of the movie was bad. It was just like it started so strong. There's a scene involving a lot of knives, and if you've seen the movie, you know. And then there's a scene involving a lot of glass shattering, and that's a good one too. I'm excited for more. And that's all I got. 4.5 out of 5.
Shit.
Good fucking movie. Okay, now the first of our 3-course meal.
Yum.
So we're called the Roundabout Cast. In our first episode, this podcast pretty much exists because we wanted to talk about Steel Ball Run, the JoJo part.
Pretty much.
So we thought, hey, eventually we're big JoJo fans and we reference it a lot. We should probably double back and start covering some of the old parts. Fill in that catalog. Then I can whore the podcast out to the subreddit, and hopefully we can get some JoJo discussions from fans.
And today is going to be the best part.
Yeah, Vento Aureo, psych. Okay, we're gonna talk about Phantom Blood. Why not double back to the beginning?
Which Phantom Blood, I don't think it gets enough love. I think it's pretty good. Like,
These days I feel like there's some real big Phantom lovers out there these days.
yeah, and I'm glad.
Makes me happy. It's coming back around.
like a lot of people, it's not surprising to me if someone says it's their least favorite part, but I feel like less people are saying that now.
I'm still saying it, but
I, the thing I have with Phantom Blood is Phantom Blood, um, like for the first like half of it is like really good. Like I really enjoyed like the first half of like you set up Jonathan Dio's like rivalry, and like you had this whole plot about Dio, like he's literally trying to poison Jonathan's dad, and this whole what's the mask mystery going on thing, and Dio turns into a vampire, and like and the scene in the mansion's amazing and great. But then like once you get past that, up until like the final few moments of the part, it just gets so slow and boring.
I
It's
agree.
Yeah,
yeah.
it's
I
like it has a very strong beginning, very strong end. Like the entire like from the first minute of the first episode up till like the big mansion fight, I'm like, holy shit, this is awesome. The finale's amazing. The middle, I'm like, it's there. It exists.
It's
And
more than there. There's some really annoying, like super dated parts to that middle.
yeah.
Um, but so even though I put the part in my bottom, right? But a lot of people say it's genuinely bad. Which is again something that's coming around lately. People are seeing the charm in it. Um, so to prepare for this podcast, I actually reread part one yesterday, and I haven't reread this part ever. Because every other time I've experienced part one was through the anime, and the anime rushes part one pretty quick because it is the one that you kind of have to slog through to get to part two. So then you
Part
can
two.
get to part three and
So you can get
stands.
to four, then to five, then to six, then to seven, baby,
It's all lead up.
and then to eight, baby, and then
Ooh,
to nine, baby.
part nine never. Nah.
Yeah.
Part nine never.
In 3 years, part nine.
Maybe.
Part 9 in 7 years.
What? No. Anyways,
Aw.
let's talk about part one. So it is short. It's only 3 volumes in the Jojolion
I
volumes,
thought
which
you were
are
gonna say
the.
3 chapters. Like, what the fuck?
It's. I think it was originally 7 volumes, but they're now condensed into 3 hearty,
Well,
thick boys.
yeah.
Which is what I read yesterday, and that is a way better experience to read in a lot of ways, and I feel like a lot of people are missing out by just watching the anime for it. Um, just
Wait, so when you say 3 volumes, is that like one single of the Jojoniums, or is it like three of the Jojonium?
it's 3 Jojolion volumes.
Oh wow, I didn't think it was that long.
Yeah, it's I think it was 6 or 7
Shit.
originally,
All right.
which that's like 40, 50 chapters. I think that's about right.
Yeah, because like the length that because like I think you said they condensed the anime a little bit. Like the length the anime is, if you had told me it was only 3 volumes, I was like, yeah, I guess I could see that.
It's 9 episodes, but they're adapting like 5 to 6 chapters per episode.
It's pretty damn good.
And I think in a lot of ways they adapt some of the wrong stuff. Like they get the action pretty much 1 to 1. It's
Nice.
just really good adaptation overall.
But it sounds like some of the in between stuff between the action is what may have got snubbed, right?
Exactly. A lot of like little scenes and little dialogues get cut, so a lot of interactions are rushed, and this is super obvious in the start, where Jonathan and Irina's relationship in the manga is actually really cute. They're both really likable. Jonathan's a lot less stiff, even though he's trying to be a gentleman. He's also kind of like a rambunctious. That's the
Yeah.
word. Yeah, that's
The
what
anime has less of Jonathan just, being a boy.
I sent y'all like a picture where he's just hanging out on top of a tree smoking.
Yeah, and I was like,
Smoking a
man,
pipe.
look at he's so charming.
And he's like, "Hey guys, you want to hide from the adults and smoke?"
Yeah, and like whenever you
He's
sent me that,
swearing.
I was like, whoa, I didn't think Jonathan would say that. I thought he
Anime
would
Jonathan
be
would
introduced.
never.
Yeah.
And another thing, so Erina is also like, you get more scenes where in their dating times, where like that scene where they're in the water splashing each other, like wearing their swimsuits and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They cut out like a little part right before that where Jonathan is in the city and he sees Zarina And he just walks up to her and he's like, "Pretend like you don't know me. Bring your swimsuit to the river and meet me there." And then he just walks away,
Oh
like he's being like all like coy and mysterious.
man,
And then
what
like
a romantic lad.
they're feeding Danny grapes, and I think one big thing that the anime misses out on is Danny. Danny's actually got some pretty decent development in the manga, where
Danny's a dog, by the way.
yes, Danny the dog, um, where you can actually see him spend more time with Jojo, to the point where like Dio sees Danny playing with Jojo and he's talking to George, and George is like, "Yeah, man, uh, Danny's Jonathan's oldest friend," and Dio's like, "Jonathan is friends with a dog?" Like he couldn't
Hmm.
even fathom it, and that's like a nice little way to show
To just
just
show like the mind of this guy, just kind of how inhuman his mind is already.
yes. Another thing with Dio is that you also get more time with Dario and just a little bit more to flesh him out, which is nice. And then so you also get this flashback where when Jonathan got Danny, they weren't really friends. He couldn't really get him to do tricks, and he couldn't get him to play and whatever. So he didn't really like his dog at first. And then Jonathan is out playing by the river by himself, and he starts drowning, and no one can hear him, so he's going to die. But Danny comes and saves him, and from that day on, Danny is like Jonathan's best friend. Danny's a good dog who sees the value of human life, etc., etc. Even as life is going bad, at least he has Danny. So then when Danny gets killed, it's fucking brutal. Um, and then there's this line, I think I wrote it down, where it's like Jojo went upstairs and slept for 2 hours. Then he woke up and remembered Danny was dead. And then he
Oh my
cried
god,
more. It's like,
Jesus, that's some
and
pet cemetery shit.
it's like in those panels, it's like Jonathan in a bed, and in the panel where he's like, and he cried more, like he's turned away from the camera and he's quivering. It's like, oh no.
Yeah, and it's like in the anime, Danny's death is already tragic enough for most people. So if they would have had all of that, like it would have landed even harder.
It was the climax of like episode one.
Yeah,
essentially.
like but most people, there's a million videos of people reacting to watching the first episode or two of JoJo's, and like even already without all that, people are like, "Oh my god, like how could Dio do this?" And if they had that, they'd be like, "Oh my god."
It's another thing is you get to see Danny pop out of the furnace in flames, so you also get that shock horror
Oh,
value. Um, that's one thing that really stuck out to me. You also get these really nice interviews from Araki when you're reading the Jojoniums, where he talks about his mindset at the time when he was writing the characters. And
yeah, it's cool to kind of see some of that extras because you sent a picture or two, and
mhm,
God, it's some of that stuff is really interesting.
it's actually like even at his lowest, there was so many interesting things going through his head, and it makes me appreciate the part a lot more. He was very much still trying to figure himself out, but he had such unique ideas, which I think really shows that like even though part one is very of its time, it's also so weird. You got these covers of Jonathan dressed in like these weird fashionable unnatural like dresses and stuff, and
Multiple
doing cool
hats.
poses, and all his hats on
Yeah.
hats.
And it's crazy because, we look at it and we're like, oh man, look how much thought he was putting into this. It's so cool. But at the time, the jump people at Jump were like, no, 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 no. People don't want, like, no, this isn't what everyone else is doing.
Nobody where has a mustache.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's one
Just
of
like,
them.
come
That's
on.
one of them that I sent them yesterday. Was uh Araki talking about how giving Zappelli a mustache was a really big gamble because mustaches were a no go at the time, where only sketchy characters would have mustaches. It's like, oh, that's really neat. That's a weird risk to take.
And I remember at some point reading that a lot of readers and like the people at Jump were kind of they didn't react well to Phantom Blood because Jonathan doesn't always win. Like he kind of gets his ass kicked several times throughout Phantom Blood, and
Yeah.
from the
That's the
start, he has a
beginning.
long way to go. Like
Yeah.
we learn about Hamon, the Ripple, whatever.
I think
He has a long way to go, and they're like at the time, it's like, you know, other characters and other shonen, like, they kind of have to grow over time. They get more powerful, but as they're learning, they are still usually winning most of their encounters. But Jonathan doesn't necessarily.
mhm.
Hmm.
Like I think Jonathan literally loses like every fight in like some way un, up until after the manor essentially.
Yeah.
Like every fight, Jonathan loses something. Like there's a part where he like rushes in, he punches Dio, and he physically triumphs over Dio, but like his father comes down, and is like, "You're a bad boy,"
Oh,
and sends him to his room, and kind of really solidifies that like his dad is like really taking in Dio. Um, like all the Dio fights, especially, and then in the manor, he loses his like family home and everything,
And his fucking dad, which is
and his
pretty
fucking dad.
brutal.
Yeah, he gets his ass kicked within like the first like 5 minutes of the show too by a bunch of hoodlums.
And
Uh,
what's nice about that is they address it more in the manga where he pulls out the handkerchief, knowing that they're gonna beat him up more, but because he has this mindset of I want to be this gentleman, I want to grow into this gentleman figure. He's like a gentleman would not be afraid of who he is, and he would take out the handkerchief and like still wipe it even if they're gonna beat him up more.
it's
So
like a metaphor for Araki in the manga game. He's like, I'm gonna be me. I don't care what you people say.
even though I copied Fist of the North Star for the first like stuff.
hey.
Well, it was just better Fist of the North Star.
And then I copied Indiana Jones, and then I copied Misery, and then I copied The Green Mile, then I copied the Bible,
Then I copied holes.
then I, I copied
Copied
Holes
holes.
super hard. Oh,
God.
what a lad. Okay. Those interviews at the back of the magazines. There's a really good one with Jonathan, the Zappelli one we talked about, and then a really good one with Dio. So with the Jonathan one, he speaks how he deliberately wanted to make the first JoJo really pure and full of dignity.
Yeah.
So I guess that means like he knew from pretty early on that he was gonna make this a generational thing. So he
Yeah.
wanted there to be a good core character at the bottom of it.
Mhm. I think also like he mentions it. I think because I've read the back of the Jojolions before, like while I was like in bookstores or whatever,
Hmm.
wondering if I should spend it like $500 to buy all of them at once. But like
Quick-
I remember him
Quick
mentioning
pro
that, like,
tip, hold on. Quick pro tip for anyone listening and Joe. Barnes and Nobles pretty much always has a buy two get one free manga deal. That's
Oh.
how I bought all my Jojoniums.
yeah.
But go on.
So, uh, but I remember reading it, and I don't remember if it's in the Jonathan one or the Dio one. I think it's in the Dio one. But essentially, like when he was writing Phantom Blood, like he really just wanted to write about Dio, but he needed someone that was a really like
Mhm.
hard foil to Dio to really sell who Dio was.
Yeah, I was in the Jonathan one, which is super interesting, right?
Yeah,
Um,
especially if you think about that time where like in that time of Shonen Jump, like all of the there was no cast of characters. Like there wasn't like a group hero pool that propelled the story. You had your one hero, and that was your hero that did everything basically.
mhm.
And so for the fact that um, Araki was more interested in kind of fleshing out who Dio was and like how he was like comparatively to Jonathan, because usually during that time it was just like a villain of the week kind of deal where you just fought one bad guy for this month and another bad guy for this month. But like Phantom Blood really established like Dio's the big bad of this part. Like he is the person that has to get taken down and you have to take him out, and he's going to come back again and again until you do.
And he's the best character for sure as well.
Oh yeah.
I think we can all agree that he's probably our favorite character in part one.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Um,
Well, because he has a very obvious motivation too, like of just like, oh hey, I grew up poor. I'd rather not be that again. So I'm just gonna take all your money and run, kind of deal.
yeah,
And you're not gonna stop me.
and he's very smart at it. He definitely grew up. In the boxing match, the manga makes it clear that like he's utilizing this defensive technique that he learned in the slums, which tells you that he's had a rough time growing up and's had to get in fights. And there was another thing with that and it slipped my mind.
Pulled out his big old donkey dong.
All right.
No, I have a question though, because I haven't read part one. Do, are the people heads on the cats still in there?
Oh yeah.
Oh, God.
Oh yeah.
Is that
Oh,
expanded on?
Man Cat is super there, and it's basically like he's talking to that Poco sister, and he's like, "Oh man, beauty's such a thing. Like, isn't it kind of a shame that you're gonna wilt like a flower and die eventually?" And he's like, "That brings me to my man cats. I made them because I thought it'd be beautiful to combine a human head and a cat." Sure, Dio. You sure succeeded, buddy.
God, I remember like seeing that in the anime and being like, "What the fuck?"
Jesus, man. Man Cat's fucking disturbing.
Yeah.
Um, Another part of the interviews I was going to bring up for the Jonathan one is so Araki says that he realizes Jonathan was really passive and that Dio was the one with incentive and agency in the story, right? But he felt that as Jonathan grew as a person and as a character and like started making his own decisions and started becoming stronger, he correlates it now to him growing as an artist early on. And I think that's really cool how he grew with his weak, unfocused early protagonist into who he became at the end of the part.
Mm-hmm.
And on the topic of interviews, I'll also talk about the Deal one, which I also just read. So, like Joe was saying, he really wanted to really draw Dio. He really liked the idea of that. And Araki says that at the time, FBI research into psychology was a big deal. Specifically, the psychology of a serial killer. And that is what inspired Dio. Araki was really interested to see that people who are truly good villains aren't just strong, they can control people, which Dio is really good at that from the start. He controls all of Jojo's friends, his family, etc. And it's kind of interesting that it was a serial killer and serial killer stories that influenced him to make his villain back then, when that villain was already the central character of the part, basically. And it only truly became fully realized 3 parts later in part 4. So that's kind of neat.
Part 4, as in Diamond is Unbreakable.
Yes, that's when his serial killer interest
Oh yeah.
and wanting to write.
Okay, I thought you were talking about like Dio coming to fruition in part 4. I was like, what?
No. Basically, he was like, I think it's really interesting that serial killers are really fucked up, right? But you also have to consider them kind of strong because they have the willpower to commit these atrocities. And he kind of fleshes out that idea all the way up to 4. And then he makes Diavolo, and he's like, "Fuck that."
well, when we get to the point when you want to commit mass suicide, we'll talk about part 5.
Yeah, fair enough. Hey man, Green Day's fucking good. That's all.
Green Day is pretty fucking good.
Green tea.
Those are all the notes I took. What else could we talk about when it comes to part 1?
Is there that much more to say?
I'm the only thing I like going back to its faults. Whenever Dio and Jonathan aren't on the screen and there's not some sort of interaction with Dio, you can really feel the lack of that presence.
Mm-hmm.
Like it just like every other villain you come across is so uninteresting and has no kind of like real big part to play other than to be just some sort of hurdle to jump through, which is funny because that's essentially all of what part 3 is. But part 3 is actually legitimately fun with those encounters.
At least those people have personalities and cool powers, you know? They're not just,
Yeah.
I'm Jack the Ripper and I flex hard and knives come out.
I hide in horses and then throw knives.
And then there's Dubiwa, whose face is just a bunch of snakes. Cool, dude.
Yeah.
Dubiwa in part 1?
Oh, yes. There's a zombie called Doobie. But he gets retrofitted into one of the best arcs in JoJo's later.
Yeah.
So, yeah, man, there's one scene that I would say is the exception of that, and it's better in the manga again. It's the one where right after the fight with Dio, Speedwagon goes to check up on Jonathan, and the nurse stops him. The nurse is Erina. He doesn't know this yet. And she's like, I can't trust you. You're not going to distract me. I'm taking care of the patient. Go away. Okay, so Speedwagon leaves. He comes back later that night to check up on Jonathan. And that's when he sees Erina taking care of him. So they kind of condense that whole scene. And Erina's been working nonstop because it's the fastest way she can heal Jonathan. And you get this nice scene. And then Speedwagon's about to pop in, and Jonathan wakes up, and they get their little dialogue where they're all romantic and shit. And Speedwagon's just like, you know what? I'm going to be a bro. I'm going to coolly withdraw, as he says. Then he walks away. I was like, man, Speedwagon's pretty good.
Yeah, one of my favorite moments of Speedwagon, and I think Speedwagon is kind of one of those. He gets that Piccolo effect real hard in this part, which is really sad. Because he has a really cool moment where, and this sticks out to me because it really solidifies the difference between Speedwagon and Jojo. Where right when Dio puts on the mask and they're like, you have to shoot him, you have to shoot him. Like they're telling Jonathan to do that, and you hear the gun go off, and you just see it Speedwagon standing right behind him, and Jonathan just couldn't do it.
That's such a good moment. I agree.
And it just shows that, like, you know, that Speedwagon's willing to do whatever he can to, like, you know, put it down, do the right thing, and Jonathan has to kind of learn to, like, even though he's your stepbrother, you have to learn to fight him and defeat him.
Yes.
Even though fucking Speedwagon ends up becoming the narrator of the park basically right after that.
He's a meme, but he also has another good moment where he puts Zappelli's frozen arm in his chest to thaw it out. Like that one hurts, man. That one, I can feel that one. That's such a good little sacrifice because he's aware that he's useless, but he tries to help where he can. And Araki kind of really starts perfecting that useless, powerless character, and he gets better with it over time to the point where he starts making Hayato and to a lesser extent like Emporio, even though he has a power.
I was gonna say, like, Hayato is probably like the culmination of that, where like there's like a whole like arc to it that's like one of the best arcs I think I've ever watched in JoJo's.
And there's also Lucy. Like he gets really good at that kind of character. One last thing we could talk about is, I guess, the finale, because I had so when I started reading JoJo's, it was because I played a video game called Jump Ultimate Stars, and it had playable characters from a lot of Jump series, and it includes...
God, that game's the coolest.
God, that game's freaking... That's a 5 out of 5. Why can't they make a proper sequel? Anyways, it had Jotaro and Dio as the playable characters. As that's what we get. We get our part 3. Well, yeah, well, never much of anything else. But at least it did have support characters of the other parts, right? So having no idea what JoJo's was, I start part 1. I'm like, this isn't the guy in the hat with his robot, because
I remember you saying that you thought Star Platinum was like a robot.
And so the world as well is like, this isn't the robot guy. That's weird. And then you get to the end of the part, and Jonathan dies in a really good scene where he takes the Space Ripper Stingy Eyes to the throat, and he uses his last Hamon to... Man, Hamon is really dumb. Let's just throw it in there. He uses his last Hamon to control a zombie to hold the shutter with his zombie strength to blow up the ship, which is, it's JoJo's. It's gonna have its bullshit. But that explodes the ship, and Erina is like, I'd rather die with you. And Jonathan has this line where he's like, you can cry, but you have to live, and you have to save this child, who was Lisa, because my mother did the same for me. And, oh man, that's just a really sad and good line. I like Jonathan. He's good. And yeah, just the balls to kill off your main character, like, before Game of Thrones was out here. Big ups.
Because that's like another thing from back then, where at the time, like, people didn't know how to feel about it. Like, what, are they killing the main guy? Like, what are you doing? But nowadays it's a lot more accepted. People were like, oh, I appreciate that he's willing.
If you don't kill your main character, are you even considered a good story anymore?
Oh man, I can't wait till Luffy dies right after becoming Pirate King.
Oh no, I would be very sad.
More likely than you think.
Yeah.
No.
I'm already bracing myself. I've been bracing myself for like 15 years. Um, yeah, it's like we said, really strong start and a very beautiful ending, and that's my part one review. It's my least favorite part, and it's still probably like a 3 out of 5. I I like it even more now that I reread it. There's a lot of little things that are really good for the time and still good.
Yeah, I think for me, part one would be ranked higher if it was just paced better and those middle fight part bits weren't just
Yeah.
so much of a slog. Because man, like there's some really good shit, like thematic wise and character wise in that part, and it's
hmm
really amazing that it was written like almost 30 years ago now.
Like Zeppeli accepting his death is a really good scene, both especially in the anime actually with the roundabout.
Hmm.
Um, but it's just like the Bruford and Tarkus fight just aren't that interesting. So it's this really cool moment.
Or Jack the Ripper, which is just like
Jesus. Or the all the zombies when they get to Dio's mansion, which that's one thing that the anime I guess is better at. It condenses the good parts, but also the bad parts. So
yeah.
it's net neutral, I guess.
Yeah, so it's just like that, and like because I just love the thought and the kind of the struggle between these two like stepbrothers, and then like because nowadays like if you were writing a shonen manga, they would just be rivals and they would have to live to get over each other. Sasuke and Naruto would have to fight each other one last time, and then shake hands and be best buds at the end of it.
And then
But
Dio would be forgiven for all his evils.
yeah, no, but like in this, like nah, man, he's a fucking vampire and he's just killing people. You gotta go kill this guy.
If he
And
doesn't, he's gonna kill this entire town. Like
yeah,
pretty
and I
good
think like
stakes.
the part would have been a lot better if there was that kind of moral struggle of like Jojo being like, I don't like him and I hate him, but he's still my brother and I don't know what to do. And
Yeah.
it poses that really good question, especially at the end when he's just hugging his dead brother's vampire brother's head as he dies.
And Dio is like so ambiguous in that scene. Like he looks like he's on the verge of tears.
Yeah, he realizes like this is the only person that probably actually loved me in my life. Like,
Jesus, that's so good.
Man.
yeah, like it's like, are you kidding me? That's such a good plot. Like the villain's only person that loves him is the actual guy that has to defeat him. Like it's great.
Goodbye, Jojo.
Good. A couple of other quick things I should add in just because so they'll be in the history of times. Dio walking up the wall, one of the best visual metaphors in most of JoJo's. Really, it's a really good visual metaphor of just him surpassing humanity. Um, and yeah, that last scene is really sad. Bradley, you got any final thoughts? That are
Um,
goodbye, JoJo.
yeah, if I had to summarize, I'd probably say the best thing is Zeppeli going, "Hey, baby." I like it.
All right. That's our JoJo. And okay, next up, I'm pretty excited for this.
I'm very excited.
Bradley has gotten a little bit further in a little manga called One Piece,
Ooh,
and I'm dying to hear
Smallest
thoughts.
manga this side of the Mississippi.
probably read close to 30 chapters yesterday, which is pretty good.
Damn, chunky.
Chunky boys. Yeah. So I read the rest of the Barati. Yeah, I don't think I've ever said that out loud. Is that how it's said? Barati?
It might be Baratier,
Baratier.
possibly, but I'll
Yeah.
go with
So
either.
I read what I guess is probably the majority of that arc, um, which is like the entire battle with Don Krieg's kind of Armada and Pearl and all that. And then I started Arlong Park, which I've heard is pretty much the shit, and so far it is. Uh,
Oh,
up to the point when Luffy marches into Arlong Park itself, and he's like, "Which one of you motherfucking fuckos is Arlong?" Oh,
okay. Hold on, let's back it up before we
yeah,
blow our load on the walk to Arlong
yeah.
Park.
I took notes, and I figured I could go through them chronologically in the
Yeah,
order I took them because I take the notes as I read
same.
on the stuff I like.
Let's do Baratier first.
Yes.
Yes. So I think at the last by the last time I had talked about it on the podcast, I had kind of gotten a little ways through the Baratier arc. It was I got up to the point where Don Krieg and his boys actually show up, and they're like, "We're gonna destroy you people." So we got to see, is it Mihawk or Myhawk?
Mihawk.
Mihawk,
My cock.
who is awesome, by the way. Like, whenever I first saw him, I was gushing to Joe and Willer about. I was like, this guy's just the coolest. I love the way he looks.
So funny thing about that, I was when I read One Piece around the first time, and I remember this when I watched the shitty 4Kids anime too, or I had the same feeling, but like I was talking to Willer and I was like, if I was going week to week and this Mihawk guy showed up and just kind of kicked ass and like went away, I kind of actually would have been kind of upset because I'm like, why the fuck is this? Did this just happen? Because I would have had no concept of like how big One Piece would get, essentially.
Yeah. Because at first glance, it's like, okay, this guy who has nothing to do with these people shows up for a brief moment to kick ass and then he leaves.
Yeah.
Well,
but in the long run,
yeah. But since talking to Willer, knowing about it, it's like, okay, this guy's probably important. He's going to show up later in the series, and he does. He does play a very important role. So I was like, I was more okay with it, but I don't know of how okay I would have been if I was going week to week reading this saga.
My thoughts on that is I think Mihawk is just an absolute win, because here you have in your 40th chapter a final boss character just showing up. Why is he here? To kill time. He chased these pirates down to bully them in a coffin boat. Regardless of anything, I think just the setup of Mihawk showing up is the turning point of One Piece. One Piece has quite a few pivot points, but I'd say like that's the first one where it's like, ooh, and then he leaves, right? So like you're leaving this dangling thread for the future, and boy does it dangle.
Yeah.
But Bradley, why don't you gush to the audience about Mihawk?
Yeah, I mean, One Piece character designs can be kind of hit or miss. They're very out there. I like that Oda is very varied with his character designs. Like even just like little unnamed background guys, you can tell them apart because they're so varied. And I just love Mihawk's design, and I love his chemistry with Zoro, because at first he's like, okay, fucking little wannabe swordsman guy, but by the end of their encounter, he has a pretty healthy level of respect. I think there's like certain sayings and mannerisms that Zoro pulls out that make Mihawk break his kind of perpetual grimace, and you can tell he kind of acknowledges Zoro as another swordsman.
Mihawk is the strongest swordsman in the world.
Yeah,
so
it's a big deal.
I think he's like up there with, I think with the exception of like 2 or 3 other people, like one of the strongest people in the entire world.
Mihawk is top 10. He's got to be, just by shonen rules. He's got to be the strongest Ichibukai or 7 warlord, because he's someone's final opponent, and that someone is the second strongest in the crew. So just by shonen rule, like, Mihawk's got to be insane.
Mm-hmm.
And he barely tries in the times we do see him, and he's already insane.
And I think there's lore later, Bradley, that I think will make you go, oh,
yeah,
about Mihawk. That I think it's just kind of said like randomly in like a one-off speech bubble about him and another character that you know. And it kind of really shows you the power level of these people.
So for him to acknowledge Zoro, first of all, he fights him, pretty much completely dominates him with a 1-inch knife, which is just such a good stunt move, like it's such a good flaunt.
And that gets called back to in the current arc, Bradley. Him with the 1-inch knife.
Yes, yeah. Man, ooh.
Ready to see that.
You'll get there in like a year or 2.
What chapter are you on? You got like 900 more chapters?
Yeah, something like that. I'm maybe 8% of the way through.
So yeah, it's his chemistry with Zoro is really good. By the end of the fight, he acknowledges him, and when Zoro presents his chest to him, Mihawk just gives him a smile. It's like magnificent that he fucking cuts that motherfucker down.
Yeah, and I don't know, just like the very short time he was there, whenever he left, I was like, man, I can't wait to see them fight again in 900 chapters. Maybe.
Well, you'll see more Mihawk, that's
Yeah.
for sure. I can promise you that.
So moving on from there, right after that, we pretty much get into the meat of this arc, which is the entire battle confrontation with Krieg
This,
and Pearl's there too. You know,
yeah.
he's a thing.
Krieg, Krieg is sieging the Baratier. He wants to add the ship to his armada.
Well, like his whole armada is destroyed, so he literally just needs a ship to have to
True.
reconstruct.
Yeah. And it's kind of split. I'd probably say the Pearl fight, while there's a few people fighting him, I'd say that's more of Sanji versus Pearl than anything else. And then Luffy's going after Krieg.
Well, I think you're skipping a character. Gin is also there, and he's more important than Pearl.
Yeah, and I had mixed feelings about him. So,
Gin or Pearl?
Gin.
Okay.
So I didn't know if it was Gin or Geen or Jin or I don't know.
Whatever. Jin works.
Yeah. So, we kind of get a few flip flops with him. The first time we ever see him, he's starving. And Sanji's like, "Oh, I'm bringing him food," and people are like, "No, no, no, he's with Krieg's pirates, and you're not supposed to trust this guy. Like, oh, he's got to be a bad pirate." And then Sanji feeds him, and then he's like, "Oh, you know what? Maybe, just the interaction. Maybe he's not so bad. He's very grateful to Sanji." And then he leaves, and then he eventually comes back with Don Krieg, and he's kind of playing up this angle, like, "Oh, I can't believe you came, Krieg. Like, I didn't want you to come." And then later it's revealed that, oh no, he actually is like the most evil dude in this whole crew. And then they fight, and then before he strikes the final blow, it turns out, oh, maybe he's not so bad. He actually does have sympathy. And I felt like I was kind of getting whiplash at any given moment. I was like, okay, is this sympathetic Jin or evil Jin?
Mm-hmm.
So I did like watching him fight. I think he had really cool weapons. And I did like I like where he ended up, where he kind of resolved, like, no, like, I'm still going to be a pirate. This is still my life. So I like where he ended up. I just felt like we kind of took him all over the place for a minute there.
I think Gin worked for me. I liked him as a character because the way I saw it, he's a ruthless killer bastard, but in his moment of need, Sanji helped him, and he brings Krieg there. And I think originally, if I recall correctly, he brings Krieg there without the idea that Krieg will take over the boat.
I think he goes there saying, like, there's someone there that'll feed us.
Will feed us.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Krieg clotheslines Sanji and pretty much ends that in a negative way.
Yeah.
But he still has a loyalty to Krieg. He's still a proud Krieg pirate. He's Krieg's, like, big killer. But he's met someone who has showed him compassion. So throughout the fight, he's really fighting with himself, to the point where at the end, he's like, Krieg, I can't kill this man. I'll be your killer, but I won't kill this guy. And even at the end, he leaves with Krieg, and he's like, "This is still my captain, Sanji. You're still a friend of mine. I still love what you did for me. And Krieg's still my captain." He leaves in a very neutral, complex way.
Yeah, because they said that in the past, Geen had been able to, like, torture someone even while they're screaming or whatever, but what he said he's never encountered is someone who did something selfless for him while he's actively trying to destroy them. And that just really turned his whole world upside down, which, Oda said that's what One Piece encounters are really about. It's about destroying your opponent's worldview.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
But I could see why you'd get the whiplash. I did end up liking him, though.
Yeah.
Joe, you got any Geen stuff to say?
About Geen? No, I just wanted to mention that I think this arc ranks lower for me than any other kind of arc. Like, basically, I see the arc in two halves. There's the half where they're talking to Sanji and they're on the ship and then trying to get Sanji to join them, and I really like that part. And then there's the fight that I think just goes on way too long.
Oh
But
yeah, I'm gonna get to that.
We can get to that. We can
Yeah.
get to this.
But-
Seems like a final argument.
yeah, but I just want to say, I love the setting of the fight. The
Oh,
setting
yeah.
of the fight is so fucking cool, especially when you think about Luffy and how he literally can't go in the water or he will die, and like just period flat out he will sink and he will drown and he will die. But it's just a really cool dynamic like setting, and you have like the chef cooks setting up like a phalanx and a wall to protect the ship, and
The
they're
fact
jumping around.
that the fact that the ship has those gills dedicated for fighting is
Yeah.
pretty neat.
And they had there's a little joke where like you can barely get the little ship, they're struggling to get the little like ship to come out, and then it turns, it goes real quickly.
Yeah, that was a good gag.
So, the next and kind of finale of this arc is Luffy's big fight with Krieg, which Luffy's just not intimidated by this guy at all. He's like, oh, I'm the strongest guy in the world, and Luffy's like, yeah, okay, well, I'm gonna be king of the pirates, and they kind of have an argument over like who's really worth being king of the pirates. And Luffy's like, I just answered that, it's me, like obviously. And so the first big hit that Luffy lands on Krieg is one of my favorite moments in the manga so far, because Luffy knocks Krieg out cold with not even like one of his big finisher moves. It's just kind of like a standard gum pistol, and Krieg had like several inches of steel between Luffy's fist and his face, and it knocks him out cold, and that's Luffy's first hit. And the reason I like that,
it's him punching the spike cape, right?
yeah, the reason I like this a lot is because from like the first few pages I saw Krieg, I always got the vibe that, I'm sure he's much stronger than your average pirate, but I believe that the only reason he got to the position he's in is through just cheap tricks and scumbaggery, which is what almost his entire arsenal is based off of. He constantly lies like, I'm sending out this attack, and he's like, oh psych, it was actually this attack. Or
Yeah.
and, like,
Oda makes
even-
it clear that he's a deceiving man.
yeah, even the first time we see him, he's like, oh please, I'll do anything for food. Like, just his whole character is based around deceit, and the fact that he gets in like almost all of his fighting, like we see other people fight with like their fists or like maybe a blade, but he fights with like almost Iron Man ass armor. Like he has to have all this technology, and it's like, I'm sure he's strong, but he might not be that strong by himself. So the fact that he got knocked out by not even like a finisher move behind armor, I really like that. And then a page or two later, he kind of gets back up for one last shot at Luffy, and Luffy's just kind of like, oh, you're up again, and then he kicks him in the head again. It's not even like a gum gavel or anything. It's just like a normal kick. And so I really liked that a lot the first time, but then throughout the fight, Don Krieg gets up, like he's defeated and gets back up like another 2 or 3 times, and each time he's stronger than the time before that. And I don't know if we needed I don't know if we really needed all that. That's when the fight started feeling like it went too long. Like at the time Luffy landed those first 2 hits, I felt like that was a pretty good length fight. But then we go on a few more chapters.
Yeah.
I think my problem with the length of Baratier is it's the Pearl fight for me personally, where
Yeah, we needed that to be as long as it was.
it was a good gag fight where like Luffy crashes into his head and he knocks his face into the iron, and then it just goes on for he beats up Sanji for a long time.
Yeah,
And he has like 3 different like modes, and like
the fight for this henchman was like as long as the Krieg fight, and
Yeah.
I don't know.
With Krieg, one thing I don't like is the poison needle part. Like Luffy just tanks a very strong attack pretty easily very early in the series. I give a lot of leeway to Luffy's durability, but that one was like, come on, it's a poison dart, whatever. Well, it's not poison. I'm getting it mixed with 4 Kids. It's just darts.
Yeah.
In 4 Kids, they're poison
Poison
suction
poison.
cups.
Yeah.
Flying 4 Kids is not the most canon version of One Piece.
No way.
With the Krieg fight, though, I really like the finisher where he has to do like, I think it was like a series of 2 bazookas to crack his
I think
armor,
it's like 3 bazookas. I think he has to have one to like set him up.
and
and then-
he's running up the mast as he's doing it too.
Yeah. It's a really cool finisher. It's just it needed to happen about 10 chapters previous.
I wouldn't say 10.
Oh, well, I don't remember how long the arc is, but it needed to happen sooner.
I'll give it like 3 chapters shorter, and
Yeah.
cut the pearl fight too.
And what'd you think, Bradley, about Nami just up and stealing the ship and heading off to Arlong Park?
So at the moment I initially read it, it didn't surprise me at all that she would do that, but I didn't buy for a second that this is Nami just like, I didn't buy that she's doing it just because she's a total asshole. I always figured there was some kind of like personal agenda behind it, and I was glad to see that seems to be the case.
That might be a meta level though, where she's a crew member, and like
Yeah.
nothing you've ever seen or we've said has ever implied that she's not there later.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially because she's like one
I've
of
seen,
the
I've seen
five.
pictures of big titty Nami from years ago.
What did you think of Sanji's flashback?
Oh yes, I forgot. That's one of my favorite moments of the entire arc.
Yeah, so I like this a lot. I think he has a cool origin, and I think it's kind of sweet that he has this past with Chef Zeph. I imagine he's been on the restaurant longer than anybody else who's there. Kind of had this love-hate relationship, but I also really liked how Oda, like, he kind of brings back a panel from the first chapter with Luffy where Shanks lost his arm, and kind of shows that parallel between Sanji and Luffy's origins, where this person that's kind of in a position they would look up to sacrifices a body part for them.
Sacrifices a piece of them.
Yeah, you see, there's so many. Sanji and Luffy are very alike, both because of that origin, and they both have a particular dream that virtually everybody else is like, no, that's impossible, you're insane. But they're just like, no, like, it's going to happen. I'm going to do it. I'm going to be king of the pirates. I'm going to find the All Blue.
There's
And
that, there's
when they
that
talk
scene.
about these dreams, they just have this
Yes.
like childlike enthusiasm for it, and they're very alike.
There's that scene early in the arc where like they're meeting for the first time and they're talking about their dreams, and you can't see what they're saying because you're seeing it from Zeph's point of view. He's just watching them, but you
Yeah.
can see their arms and their faces like with so much enthusiasm of sharing a dream with someone else that
And someone's
has
like
a
willing to listen and
Yeah.
like actually be involved in that like excitement, like, oh my god, this person gets it what it's like to like have a dream like this.
and
Yeah.
Sanji's like a gruff guy, but that immediately sells their friendship, I think.
Oh,
God,
yeah.
I love Sanji. He's so cool.
Very-
And the other thing about that flashback that I really really like, it kind of shows you that like One Piece is like very, I think at one point when we had that chart that like that's like settings, I think one of them was Grimbright. And I'm like, One Piece is 100% Grimbright because there are some very dark moments of One Piece, but it feels
Yes.
very whimsical at the same time.
Oh man, Nami's flashback. Oh my god.
Oh,
Yeah.
we'll get there. Oh, I'm so glad you got there already.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
Just back to Sanji real quick. The fact that Zeph ate his leg, Jesus, man.
Yeah, that's like.
Oh.
And the great thing is, like, you don't have to like see him do that. You can just witness the results. Like, there's another arc way down the line. That's probably the most metal like origin story ever. And like you don't even like it doesn't even like show you what that person does, but you immediately understand like what they did.
It
And you're
doesn't
like,
even-
oh,
It doesn't even tell you because it's
Yeah.
it's too dark for One Piece
yeah,
to the point where like it happens and it 100% happens, but it's not acknowledged because like kids are reading. We can't like say
Yeah.
what just happened.
and you're just and it really solidifies that this person like has gone through horrible things and doesn't realize it. But like the same thing with them with Zeph is like
the horrible things happen in this world as much as fun and laughter there is in it. It's like there are dark moments that happen, and it's great. I love it.
Do you
10 out of
have
10 backstories.
Do you have any other points? Because I definitely want to talk about the goodbye scene. But if there's anything else, we'll probably close Barati with that goodbye scene.
It was very touching, and I think I've said before with I think maybe Sanji's goodbye, that or when Sanji's leaving his island, that I like that Oda has this confidence to know
Oh, you mean Usopp?
what emotion that his readers are feeling, because everybody's super sad in the story, and even the characters the next chapter, once Arlong Park has started, to like, oh my god, that was so sad to watch, and I was like, I know it was so sad.
The idea that like he gets all the chefs to say his delicious soup is shitty because he knows he needs to rile Sanji up.
Yeah,
And Sanji gets riled up and he's leaving and he's storming out and he reflects on it a little bit and he turns to Zeph and he gets on his knee, this really gruff guy who's only been like, he's a friendly but tough guy, and he gets on his knees and he just thanks Zeph for everything that he did with tears in his eyes.
And Sanji's like the epitome of cool on the ship because like he wears like an all black suit, he smokes, he has like one eye covered by his hair. He's just kind of like the epitome of cool, and for him to like break that kind of persona to like just thank this man is a really touching moment, I feel.
His relationship with Zeph is really good and should not be forgotten.
Never
Forget.
very important.
We good to move on to Arlong Park?
Yes,
yes.
it's like
All right.
oh my god.
So the very first chapter that we're officially in the Arlong Park arc, once they left the restaurant, they start sailing that way. Most of this first chapter is just kind of in the water on the way there, and I love how well Arlong is built up as an antagonist just in these conversations, because we've seen how ridiculously powerful Mihawk is, and so we get the reveal that there's 6 more people, the
6
whatever
more Dwarves of the Sea.
yeah. We get the reveal that there's 6 more people who are considered on a level somewhere close to him. And even Luffy, who is usually completely unfazed by everybody, even Don Krieg, he just didn't give a shit about him. Like, even Luffy is like, holy shit, there's 6 more people as strong as that guy. Like, he's freaking out about it. Which, coming from Luffy, is kind of crazy. And then we learn that the guy we're sailing to, Arlong, is a fishman who at one point was considered an equal to Jinbei, one of the 7. So
Yes.
I'm like, holy shit, this guy's gonna be insane.
And it's important to say that this was at one point in the past they were equals, but One Piece power levels means that doesn't necessarily mean that he's as strong as Jinbei today.
Right. But just even if it was at some point in the past, you have to be like, oh my god.
Also,
And-
I can't believe Jinbei was mentioned so early in this series.
He was the longest running mystery in One Piece.
Yeah, you're right. I thought originally what I thought was what I originally thought that was is another warlord that you see him and he just has a few lines and you're like they're building him up to something, and it's Mr. Flamingo. But yeah, you're right. Jinbei is the one that's like been hidden the longest, essentially.
Another thing is Mihawk, and that conversation on the ship is where One Piece's strongest point starts being born, which is the world building and the setting of One Piece. Bradley doesn't realize it now, but he's getting to a point where a lot of stuff is going to start being introduced into the world, and a lot of seeds are going to be planted for later. And what's beautiful about One Piece is that all these seeds bloom in really fun ways and really well thought out ways.
I'm excited for it because that's one reason I decided to read it, is because the easiest way to get me to read something is if it has something in common with Worm. And for example, like there's a character who appears in one chapter near the beginning, and then they end up being like absolutely pivotal near the end. And when it happens, it's not even like out of nowhere. You can see how they got there.
Mm-hmm.
So when I
That's
hear you
always
guys
fun.
talk about this kind of stuff, I'm like, oh, well, I like that kind of thing. I want to see where these characters go.
It's to the point where every chapter, me and Joe can have like solid, meaty discussions about the implications and what all happened and how stuff feeds into stuff. And
Yeah. But Arlong Park, because Arlong Park is like went up there in my top arcs and really like was one of the points where it was like, fuck, this is actually really good and really thought out. And there's like one precise moment I can pinpoint to
now,
that.
now,
that
don't
made-
hy- don't
But-
hype up the boy too much. Let's
know.
keep moving.
He's
I
already
don't,
been
I
there.
want to. I don't want to get
Bradley,
revealed too
go.
much
Keep
later
going.
stuff. Okay, so then after they are kind of sailing to the island, we kind of cut away and we see Nami show up to Arlong Park, and we kind of get the reveal that she was technically a member of Arlong's crew the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
And so at first you're like, oh, you know, I guess she was a fucking evil pirate. And I feel like a lot of other writers would be tempted to kind of string the reader along for the majority of the arc, pretending that she's actually been super evil this whole time. But seriously, like two panels after the reveal that she's been an evil Arlong pirate the whole time, Arlong's like, yeah, she's cold-blooded. All we had to, like, even though I killed her parents, she's cool. And she gets this look on her face. And the direction she's facing, it's a look that only us and Zoro would see. None of Arlong's crew would see it. But that particular panel, 2 pages after the reveal that she's part of this crew, is all I needed to know that she's here because she has to be, not because she's one of them.
Mm-hmm.
She's not the kind of evil that these guys are. And just to drive it in even further, about another page after that is when Zoro thrusts himself into the water and she saves him. So, you know, Oda didn't have to do these 2 beats. He didn't have to, but I'm glad he did. A lot of people might have wanted to play up the reveal for another 10 or 20 chapters, making you think Nami's super evil, but we don't need that. Like,
It wasn't the point.
yeah, the Nami we saw that's been friends with Luffy and Zoro is a real person. She just has a higher priority right now, and she doesn't really know where to.
And-
she doesn't really know where to sort her
And
priorities.
let's not forget that this is the same person who used her own hands to put out the flame of the cannon that was going to shoot at Luffy.
Yeah.
And she also put her life at risk to get Zoro his swords. And all the while, she's thinking about treasure, but she's also doing these acts of kindness that really she has to sacrifice part of herself and put herself in risk to help the crew. Remind me again, why did Zoro jump in the water? It was to prove Nami wasn't... Yeah.
Even he did it after he saw her face when Arlong was talking about her. And he was in the same boat as me. He's like, I don't buy this for a second. I do not believe that she's like a cold-blooded evil witch lady.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm really glad that his hunch was correct, because otherwise he would have died.
He's a betting man.
Yeah, so we kind of go along, just kind of moving people around like our little chess pieces, putting them where they need to be to set up for the arc. There was one little moment where, in the grand scheme of things, it's not super important, but it's just one reason I really like Luffy a lot. I feel like Luffy's consistently unpredictable in the best possible way. Just as far as how he tackles situations. So, like, when the giant cow fish monster appears during their little meal, Momu or whatever,
Ooh.
I could easily see Luffy doing one of 2 possible things. I could see him just totally brushing off the huge-ass monster because he's eating and he doesn't have time for that. But I could also see him doing what he actually does and just immediately going, man, fuck this monster for no reason. In the face.
They're both in character.
Yeah,
You don't know which one.
Thing is, and like another thing with his kind of unpredictability, a chapter or 2 later when he learns of Nami's quote betrayal, whatever, I could on one hand expect him to, argue with her or try to win her over or something, but what he actually does is he's just like, man, fuck this, I'm taking a nap. And
Yeah,
both
I remember that.
options seem both so unlike, but also very much like Luffy.
That feeds into one of my favorite parts. But yeah, go on.
He also does that while Nojiko is telling Nami's backstory. So he's like, no matter what you say right now, Nami, I know Nami is my friend. I don't even need to be here for this. I'm gonna go take a walk.
And it's kind of this whole arc for Luffy, like in terms of the whole arc for Luffy for us the readers, is to realize that Luffy is really in tune to the personalities of other people, and he knows what everyone's like. He knows how that person truly is, how that person truly feels.
Luffy might be an idiot, but he has really high emotional intelligence, and that really shines later on as well.
Yeah, but go on.
So I don't know. I just I felt like I needed that moment to spotlight why Luffy is so entertaining. There's even the moment where like the village leader is meeting up with the Navy guy, and they're talking about this stuff, and I don't know. Luffy looks at them and he's like, "Oh my god, why does that guy have a pinwheel on it?" And it's like, Luffy, that's not what's important. It's like there's way more. They're talking about way more important stuff.
I like Nojiko's interactions with Usopp. Just wanted to bring that up. Nojiko's really cool. Usopp was suspicious, but then he's understanding, and he comes around, and he understands Nami's feelings as well. He also takes a shot at Arlong, and then just freaking books it, which is pretty fun.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I thought it was interesting because when Nojiko, was it Nojiko or Nojiko? Nojiko. Whenever she appeared, I was like, man, she looks a lot like Nami. And surprise, surprise. Though I guess
better get used to it.
Nami,
Yeah, better.
Which I guess it fits. So yeah. All right, let's see what else I got here. Okay. So one thing I really liked, and this came after the kind of reveal that Nami had stabbed her own hand to prevent Usopp from being killed.
Such a good scene.
Which I was like, I kind of had that moment before where I was like, oh, Nami's still good. She's like, she's not gonna betray our dudes. And then the moment happens where she stabs Usopp, and you don't know that she didn't really kill him yet. I was like, holy shit! It's like on one level, it totally looks like she just killed Usopp, but I can't believe she would actually do this.
This is good in two ways, because Oda is kind of tricking you to like, she's backed into a corner. Maybe she did actually stab Usopp now.
Yeah. That's the thing is like, even if she did kill him, I don't buy that she would want to do it, but maybe she was in a position where she just actually had to do it.
And it adds a new layer when you find out. It's like, geez, Nami, because the Straw Hats are so invasive and so loud and they get into all sorts of trouble, Nami's cover is going to be blown. Like, you also get this level of tension on the Nami side of the storyline.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So it's just, it was really impressive. And I think one thing that really made me consider whether she might, the one thing that made me consider for even a second that maybe she actually is like evil or something, is when she actually stabs him. Oda draws her eyes very differently than he normally does. They're just like a very like angry but also void look.
They look almost bloodthirsty.
Oh yeah, and I'm just like, holy shit. And it's very subtle things like that that can really change how you perceive a panel. So we get that reveal that she stabbed her hand to prevent Usopp from being killed. And me being me, I of course had to go back through the last few chapters to make sure everything was visually consistent. And man, Oda is great because you notice if you go back and look from the stabbing scene, after she initially stabs him, she has her hands down at her side, and the hand that actually did the stabbing has very little blood, and the one that didn't stab him is covered in blood, and no one would really notice that unless you were me going back to look for it, I guess. And you can even see in her position the way she's stabbing him, you could see how she could be stabbing her own hand. And then I was like, okay, let's look through these other chapters. And then from then on, up until the reveal that she didn't actually kill Usopp, in every single panel she's in, her hand, that hand that she had stabbed, is either off screen, or it's behind her back, or later on, after she's had a chance to get away from things, it's in a glove. Like she has that hand gloved, but even then, that gloved hand is like she's not using it, and it's like limp wristed, like she's like it hurts. And I was like, man, I really appreciate, like, you wouldn't notice this going through the first time, but then once you know the reveal and you go back, you're like, holy shit, it was all there in plain sight.
One Piece is confirmed to be Bradley proof because
It is Bradley Proof.
For
This-
most things. For most things.
yeah,
you know me,
you know.
like, you know, if this were JoJo's, they would have just shown her hand being okay, and then they would have a flashback where you see her stabbing her hand, and
yeah,
I don't know.
they're two sides of a same coin.
So I was very pleased to see that this was Bradley Proof. It was very visually consistent. I liked it a lot.
Now. All right, next point.
Okay. I think I have one more thing before we get caught up to where I am.
Hold on, before you go on, Bradley, I'm surprised you didn't talk about how Zoro just walks into Arlong Park, literally beats everybody, and just chills out
And
until
tricks Hachan into being his ride.
yeah.
That was really fun. As far as him like beating the fishmen, I was always pretty. It didn't surprise me that Zoro could beat them. Like we see them turn this village upside down, but I don't know what it is about Zoro. I feel confident enough in his abilities that it's not crazy that he beat these little fishmen. But if he fought Arlong himself, I'm just like, oh my god, I don't know if that's gonna happen.
Guess you'll find out.
Yeah.
I guess we'll find out. And then, so the last thing before we kind of bring the whole crew together and go to Arlong Park is we get the Navy coming to find Nami's treasure, and then we get her flashback arc, which, oh my god. Like,
Jesus.
so first of all, before Arlong Park, I think Luffy was probably my favorite character, maybe Sanji next in line. Right now, Nami's my favorite character. Like, holy
She's so
shit.
good.
This whole arc is just, it was breaking my heart in the best way. Like the moment where just like as soon as I heard that, oh, the price for 2 kids is the same as 1 adult, I was like, oh no. And then their mom only had 100,000. I was like, no. Like, you just know what's gonna happen.
And if I recall correctly, you get that amazing scene. First of all, there's just so much good stuff in that flashback, like Genzo and how he was just like, Bellemere, you're a shitty mom, and like, but I still will help you out with your kids. Like Genzo has a really nice relationship with the children, and
really does, because like he'll bust them for, you know, stealing or fighting, but he clearly really cares about them. He doesn't view them as pests.
you have that one where Nami's like, she tries to sexually seduce Genzo, and he's like, where the hell did you learn that?
Yeah, he's like, don't pick up her habits.
And then
And
you
then,
have
like-
like Nami calling Bellemere a bad mom because she can't provide like the monetary value that Nami wants, which comes back really crushingly
That
later.
made me so sad, because you know that Bellemere, like, she tries her hardest, and to hear, you know, her kids say that is probably the worst way you could hurt her.
I also love how mature Nojiko is throughout the flashbacks. Like she made me like her character even more.
Yeah.
So
On to the climax scene of the.
Before that, I think do they show how Nojiko gets her tattoos, or why
I
she
don't know
does?
if they did.
I think that's later. That's
Okay,
later
that's
in the
that's
arc.
one of my little. That's a small little scene that comes later that I really like, and it's nothing tremendously
Oh
special.
god, it's so good. It is special, Joe.
Yeah.
Don't sell yourself short.
But yeah,
So it leads up to that scene where, remind me if I'm like, correct me if I'm wrong. But like, they have the children have a choice of sticking out of it, and they're like, if we don't go forward, Nojiko can get away with this, and just pay for herself. What causes them to have to run out again and like hug Nojiko? Not Nojiko,
So
sorry, Bellemere.
yeah, their original plan was Bellemere can like pay for herself, and then the girls can sail away to a different island. Um,
Yes.
but like she can kind of tell that's the plan that they're cooking up for her kids. And she's like, no, they're not going to survive out there sailing on their own. If I want to save, like, they're just not going to survive. Like in the world where people like Arlong are out there, it's not going to happen. So
Yeah.
she's like, I'm going to have to turn myself in. The townspeople care enough that they will take care of my girls. So that's why she's like, no, this money's for my two kids. You take me.
And it's like she rejects the notion that like she rejects the idea of not declaring them as her daughters because they are her daughters.
Yeah, they're like, she doesn't have children, actually. And they look through the town records like, oh, yeah, Arlong, she doesn't have kids. She's like, no,
No,
I have kids.
these
And I'm
are
not
my
going to
kids.
pretend I don't.
Yeah.
And the fact
Wh-
like she was a badass Navy and she found them as babies, like just
Yeah.
makes it all just fleshed out and better.
She grows
Arlong knocks on her
tangerines.
door. She knocks him on his ass and shoves a gun barrel in his mouth.
She's so cool.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Best
Um,
single mom.
The most
Possibly.
like the most tragic part for me was like two panels before she actually gets shot. Nami screams, "Wait, you have to see my world map after I draw it."
Hmm.
And I just had to take a break after that because I was like, "This was too much for me." It was very sad. Nami flashback was 5 out of 5. Like,
Yeah, it's
100%. Holy crap.
What if I told you that's probably like fourth or fifth best flashback for me? Like that.
yeah.
One Piece flashbacks are incredible.
I mean, yeah. I have a long way to go. I could believe it.
and,
It's
and,
just
like
amazing.
it's still a 5 out of 5. Like it's so good, man.
Well, God, the next crew members flashback, I'm just like, oof.
Big
It's-
oofs.
it's-
Never. We'll talk about it later.
But I just want to throw this quick tidbit in here. In the Four Kids version of the show, they don't shoot Bellemere, they just put her in the dungeon, and the show just conveniently forgets about her.
The fuck?
So there's this Reddit post Joe shared with me recently.
Oh, I can share it with you now because you got past that arc. Hold on, let me see if I can find it.
Yeah.
But you can describe it, or
Joe, you got it.
yeah, I'll try to find it. But essentially, like, I was browsing our One Piece, and this guy's like, "What happened to Bellemere?" I was like, "What the fuck are you talking about?" He's like, well, "In the show, they sent her to the dungeon, and they just left without her." And everyone had, like, in the comments had to go like,
Oh no!
"Oh dear, oh sweetheart."
If that was for real, that is the best thread on Reddit.
So let's see. I have one more big point, I think.
Yes, the biggest point. This is
And
the scene Joe has been dying to talk about.
well, I don't know if it's a particular scene. It was kind of I was going to talk about the Navy a little bit,
Okay.
but I don't know if you guys had a scene y'all were thinking about.
Yes.
Yes. There's
Let
one-
me take a quick. Let's take a quick break because I just have a dying urge to take a break.
Okay.
Okay.
We're back. Okay. Sorry about that.
Yeah.
Talk to us about the Navy.
Yes.
Yeah. So, I think in our very first podcast, one of the first questions Joe had for me about One Piece was, at this point, what do I think about the Navy?
Yes.
And this was after the whole Axe Hand Morgan deal. About whether, is the Navy strong? Are they competent? Are they not? Are they fundamentally good? Are they fundamentally bad?
Mm-hmm.
And so this is probably the most of the Navy that we've seen since then.
Yeah.
So to kind of update, what I had said at the time is I could still see that this is back then. My answer from back then was that I could see the Navy being a fundamentally good force in the world, because if they weren't, I don't think a Boy Scout like Kobe would be so infatuated with joining them. I think the Navy that we saw at the time with Morgan had to be bad because we needed a reason for Luffy and Kobe to work together in that particular arc. So now we get up to here, and this Navy we see is way worse. They are just like scummy, greedy, corrupt Navy. we see one other Navy officer, but we don't get to get a really good read on him because the fishmen kill him like immediately. So as far as the Navy we do see, I'm still not convinced the Navy as a whole is bad. I don't think they're necessarily as it seems like in general in the world the pirates are kind of outclassing the Navy, but I still think the majority of the Navy is good dudes. The reason we're seeing bad Navy in this arc is because these are the Navy guys who are the types that would be okay with dealing with Arlong. Like, we're not going to have the good Navy guys here teaming up.
And Willard mentioned this before, I think, where like the Grand Line is really where the bulk of the series takes place, but it's also where like the bulk of like the power struggle is. Yes. I think
that's where all the that's where all the resources of the Navy has to really be allocated, is the Grand Line.
Yeah, and I think the characters even say like, if the Grand Line Navy was able to come here, like Arlong would have been gone from these villages for a while, but they, like, the threats on the Grand Line are so many and so powerful that they just cannot spare anything.
And just to have a small request, I want you to I want you to keep thinking about the Navy, and whenever we have like another kind of like Navy arc, or they're introduced or they're involved in some way, just give me your thoughts and opinions about them up until we get to like right at the time skip. Because once you get to the time skip, it really solidifies what the Navy is, and it's a really interesting way to like see how like we are slowly introduced to what this is.
And keep you were saying Kobe has his view of the Navy, right? And so far what he's seen, it hasn't reinforced his view, because we've only run into low-level navies that are primed for corruption. I just keep that in mind for future Navy talks too, because it is important.
In the past, I'd said, Luffy probably has a better view of pirates than most people in the world, because he grew up around probably some of the most honorable of the pirates. And we don't know. Maybe Kobe had the same experience with the Navy guys. Maybe most of the Navy is assholes, and he just grew up around the really good ones. I don't know that.
Kobe's just optimistic.
Yeah.
Yeah, we don't know. I'm excited to see how that develops.
Man, I'm
okay.
No, it's like the greatest saga in entirety of One Piece, and I just can't wait for you to get to it. And it's so far away, but it's okay. But anyways,
and then after that, the crew has a little rendezvous, and then they march into Arlong Park, and then Luffy has his grand entrance, and I feel like a lot of other the line a lot of other shonen protagonists would have done, they would have yelled like Arlong, or they'd be like, Arlong, I've come for you, but Luffy's just like, which one of these motherfuckers is Arlong? Like,
word for word.
Bradley, I cannot believe, I feel like you skipped chapters, because the thing I thought we were super gonna talk about, you just glossed over.
All right, well, tell me about it.
So can I talk about Willard?
Yes, please.
Okay, so there is a moment right before. So the entire time that Luffy is on this island, he is very much just like, I'm not going to help Nami. I'm not going to resolve this situation. It's not my problem. He's 100% like, I'm not doing it. And Usopp and Zoro are like, what the fuck are you doing?
Like, and she's even like been stressing to villagers like, no, I don't want or need help. So they've kind of been doing this like, no, hands off.
So there's a scene right before this happened, and Luffy wakes up and he's like, all right, I'm gonna see what's up. And he goes out, and I can't remember the specifics of what happens, but essentially Nami realizes that her treasure's been stolen, and Arlong has essentially lied to her entire life.
Yes.
And she's breaking down. She's having this moment, and Luffy walks up behind her, and Nami just turns and just goes, "Luffy, please help me."
Oh,
and
yeah.
He takes the hat off, puts it on, doesn't say anything, takes the hat off, puts it on her head, and just walks forward.
Well, he yells, "Damn right," or "Hell yeah," or something.
Like, let's do it, and they're like, "Fuck yeah, let's do it."
Yeah.
That scene is legendary.
That to me like solidified so much of like who Luffy is as a captain. Like, he's just like, I am your captain. I'm going to help you when you want it. But if it's your problem, it's your problem. And I'm not going to like stop you from trying to deal with your own problems if you don't want me to. And the fact that he's willing to still be there and like just kind of hold off until she finally goes like, please help me,
really kind of just shows that he's so in tune, like he understands what it means to like really, because he understands like this is Nami's problem. She wants to overcome it. She wants to be the one to solve this problem, and he can't do anything for it. I mean, he could, but he knows that that's not going to give Nami the satisfaction she needs.
Right.
It's just such a great moment in the series, and really, and it kind of solidifies that, like, just Luffy is always thinking about the other people in his life.
And to add on to that, so Nami used to like Nami to a lot of people isn't their favorite character, but I think they forget just how good and important to the crew she is, especially in this beginning, and how mature she is. And the idea that when she's broken down, she's so self-sufficient, she's so independent, she's tricked over so many pirates to the point where she was ready to start over again if she needed to. But she's crushed. She realizes her money's taken. Arlong's lied to her. The idea that this kind of person can turn to Luffy and beg for help and just know that Luffy will resolve this problem if you ask him. You just have to bring yourself to let him get involved. It just shows this relationship between the two that's just so good.
It's really hard for a writer to show character growth using only one word.
Yeah.
But Oda did it. She just turned to him and she said help. And you know, that was one of those panels where I just had to take a picture of it and look at it several times because I loved it.
Yeah, it's like right before a page flip. Basically, like you're on one page, and then it's a 2-page spread of her just saying help, and that's like it almost.
And, you know, we haven't up till now. We haven't really seen adult Nami in a position of weakness until this arc. Up till now, she's always, even when things are dire, she kind of has this kind of carefree, like, I can do this.
Yeah.
I've gotten away from worse situations before. But we're finally faced with a situation where she really needs these friends that she's made. She needs them in this moment. And, you know, to them, you know, she never separated. Like, she's like, oh, you know, they were good friends, but, you know, I have to betray them now and bring this money back. But to them, like, she was always still a part of the crew. And as soon as she needed help, they're like, yeah, we're there. We're ready to go.
And just the fact that, like, the grimness of her stabbing herself, like, endlessly, that scene is really dark. And she just hates everything who she became, that she has to be associated with Arlong. And she's taking it out on herself, and it's
like she realizes that she sacrificed like a part of herself to like for the greater good of like her village, and it just wasn't worth it in the end.
It was for nothing.
Yeah.
So even not having finished Arlong Park yet, I can probably say it's going to be a 5 out of 5.
Yeah. This was also the arc that I realized like how One Piece is structured when it comes to its like encounters, where you have this long build up. And it's all about the build-up, and then the fight at the end is just kind of the resolution of it. The fight itself it's not like Dragon Ball Z where you're going from fight to fight to fight to fight. It's really like it's coming up with a reason to why to fight this person almost.
And then the fight is an emotional release, and boy, is this fight an emotional release. It's really good. You still got quite a bit to go. There's a lot of combat coming up.
Oh yeah,
but the fact that all the crew members are involved, the fact that Zoro, Sanji, and even Usopp are just immediately like, "Yep, she asked for help. Let's do this," and they march over there. I gotta show you that scene in the anime. Joe doesn't like it, but like it's.
I just think that the music's really off in it.
It's everyone's like one of their favorite scenes, so I'll share that with you later.
As far as for the future, and you know, obviously I don't want spoilers, but kind of I'll talk about what I would kind of want out of the conclusion of this arc and why, I guess.
You want Luffy to die, I know.
Yeah, I know. No, I would really, I think it'd be really nice if Nami were the one to deal the final blow or defeat Arlong, for 2 main reasons. One, just because, like, holy shit, she deserves to get that kill. But also because, you know, at one point Oda had said that the reason that the villains in One Piece don't necessarily die after their fights is because a big part of it is shattering their worldview. And I started to really see that lately. Like with Krieg, he just has this, both Krieg and Pearl just kind of have this image of themselves as this invincible, untouchable, Um,
Warriors.
yeah, and whenever they get hit, each of them, when they get hit for the first time, you can just see like in their face, like they just crack. They're like, "Holy shit, I'm not actually the shit," you know? I'm not actually invincible. And that was kind of a really good moment where it's like shattering their worldview. Buggy's a little bit harder to place, but I kind of feel like he has this attitude where he thinks because of his devil fruit powers, he's kind of invincible like that. Which, you know, he's not. He fights another devil fruit guy and he gets his ass kicked.
Yeah.
At least so for Arlong, a big deal with him is one, the greed, but also it's just this kind of repeated deal where he's like, fishmen are just superior to humanity. Humanity, they're monkeys, they're nothing, they're idiots, they're weak. And I think we need to shatter that worldview. I think he needs to be beaten by a human, which I guess technically Luffy's a human, but I mean he's also a rubber
Superhuman.
I'd like Arlong to be beaten.
Here's
by
all I can say. The resolution to this arc is, in my eyes, perfect.
Yeah. At this point, I trust Oda. I think he can deliver.
It's hard. It's almost
hard to
unpredictable
without spoiling anything, but yeah, it's pretty good.
Yeah,
Pretty
like
good.
Even this early on, I think Oda's earned my trust. Where it's like I trust him to end this arc in a way that I like.
I feel like, yeah.
Go ahead, Joe.
I was gonna say, like, right now, me and Will are are fully caught up in the current arc, and I feel like whenever I read threads, there are people that are like, I don't know where Oda's going with this, and it's just like, you've been reading this goddamn manga for 958 chapters or whatever it is,
And you don't know where he's going with it.
You don't think he knows what he's doing? Like, it just blows my mind that people would think that he's slipping up. And maybe he is, but
I'd be
I don't see
surprised.
it. Yeah.
It's more the idea where like this current arc is so complex and has so many plot lines where people are like, how I can't imagine the future of how it's going to be tied up.
Yeah.
But it just means that when he does, it's going to be splendid. And yeah, is that good? What's your Barati score, Bradley, for me and Joe's purposes?
Oh yeah, fuck! I need to bring up the spreadsheet.
I'm gonna call Barati. I think at one point during it, I was feeling a 4. I'm gonna bump it down to 3.5. It would go up to a 4 if Krieg would have. If we got like 2 or 3 less of the Krieg, like, oh, I'm defeated, and then getting back up, I'd probably bump it up to a 4. It went on a little bit too long, but 3.5 is still good.
I think I still get a point. So
I said 3, so we're in the middle here.
no, I said a 4. We round up.
No.
Yes, that's how we've always done it. Point fives get rounded up.
No.
Yes, give me my point.
We'll give us each a point.
No, that's not how we've ever done it.
We'll give each other half a point.
No, Joe.
They will
This
let
is
the listeners
ridiculous.
see the spreadsheet so they can.
Yeah, maybe
All right.
I'll post it one day.
But
Give me
I
my
know for a
fucking
fact
point.
I'm pretty sure Will and I are going to both tie in the next one. Well, this current one, which is Arlong.
Yeah, easy 5 out of 5.
I'm scared of saying these things to Bradley because I've overhyped him before.
Easy 5 out of 5. Except for Steel Ball Run, there's no way to overhype that.
Yeah. If anything, we underhyped you.
Yeah, I was shocked. I was surprised how much you liked it, Bradley. Like,
I remember, I think it was I think it was like the Mandem arc where Joe gave me 4 out of 5. I was like, how could you possibly think I'd give that less than?
Yeah,
5?
I remember like going through. I was like, what the fuck was I? What was that high?
How could any human think that's less than 5 out of 5?
Yeah, I just was not thinking straight. But yeah,
So here's what I'm thinking.
One Piece good.
One Piece, yes. What Bradley's finally over the hump. I don't have to worry anymore. Like he's gonna finish One Piece now.
Yeah, Arlong Park to me is also like the climax of the East Blue portion of the series.
Yeah, like I don't know how long the East Blue saga is,
You
but
have
I
one
feel
more
like
arc after this, but it's really short.
yeah.
I'm thinking we'll talk about One Piece again when he finishes that arc. We'll get the second half of Arlong Park and that arc probably.
Yeah, I think so too. And like because it's a good like I don't want to say quarter point, but it's a good like it's like you have closed like an official section of One Piece once you get past the next arc.
Oh man,
We'll have more marine talks.
Another point for Oda that I want to give him. I think this was like last night at 2 a.m. or something, where I like his. I talked about liking his character designs, and I love that Arlong's face and body type is so unique that he doesn't even need like a fun costume like some of our other bad guys have.
Oh, yeah.
He just has normal ass clothes like
He's just
shorts and a
chilling.
Hawaiian shirt.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Okay. So what we have next, I'm not. We're gonna take a break right after I say this. But what we have next is a Game of Thrones spoiler cast. Bradley, you can jump out now if you so desire.
Yeah, I'll probably dip out because I don't think I'll be able to contribute
Yeah.
very much. I'm sorry for
It's
people.
up to you.
Yeah, and we'll see how long this goes, because I feel like Willer, you and I kind of have we discussed it a little bit. And we have kind of the same ideas, but
I'll summarize it for you right now. Season 8 bad.
season 8 disappointing.
Season 8
the-
bad.
Okay, and you're right.
You did
And
not
I'm sitting on some worm chapters, but we'll cover them next time.
Oh, I didn't even know.
Well, it's the ones that I already read,
Oh, that's right.
but I never got to talk about them.
All right.
I must talk about one of them. No, they're both good, but one of them is.
I mean, you know.
All right.
Okay. Well, we
break
can do
time.
that next week, I guess.
Everyone
got
say
beat.
bye to Bradley. You got a hypothetical before you leave?
Oh my God.
No, never mind. I'll do one later. You're good.
Willer, yeah.
Okay.
I'll cover for you, bro. All right. So
Hello.
we got Game of Thrones. We don't want to spend too much time.
I think.
I feel like we have somewhat similar perspectives, but then different on others.
What I mean is, in terms of it, you as a watcher, I don't remember when you started, but like you essentially watched the show like episode to episode almost.
I started season 3, I believe.
Yeah. So a good chunk of the show you watched episode to episode essentially.
Yeah, correct.
Whereas I watched basically the whole thing 1.5 times.
Yes.
Yeah, where I watched half of the show / read it, and over the course of 2 weeks, I watched the entirety of the show again.
Now, the fact that Joe read it also adds another layer to this, where he had book expectations and didn't like some characters because of the book portrayals versus the TV portrayals.
Yeah, and
Meanwhile, I only had the TV.
and in addition, like because like I watched like half the show, and then all the podcasts I listened to, like they watched Game of Thrones, so they would just spoil it, and I just kind of became passive to it. So I was like, I won't care.
Uh-huh.
So I got to rewatch everything with these spoilers in mind, and like, and you saw everything as it unfolded.
Hmm.
So I think that becomes a very interesting perspective because I already know what's going to happen. So that allows me to
Prepare and look out for
prepare
things.
and essentially, like we mentioned this before, but like I get to see the bomb in the room before anyone else does.
Yes.
And I think that's kind of the reason why, for me, Game of Thrones is a lot lower ranked for me than it is for you.
It's not like super high for me, but I'd still put it high even with
season 8 not counting or anything, but
Okay,
like just like in terms of my enjoyment of it, like
that
I
makes
just
sense.
hmm and I should preface that my personal opinion about spoilers is I think don't spoil anything for anybody, but a spoiler should like if you're writing a story and you have something in that hinges on this one plot point not being known to the viewer, or else it ruins the whole story, then I don't think your story is particularly solid. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Because
I'm the same.
yeah, you're then just putting in shock value for shock value, and you're not providing a point as to why that moment happens.
There's a really good video by Super Eye Patch Wolf, which is the dream guest of the podcast. Please bless us, John. Where he talks about spoilers and spoiler culture, and I pretty much align with it. Where for me, a spoiler doesn't ruin the show. It gives you a different. You don't get to have the surprise, but you get to have a different enjoyment. Where, like Joe was saying, you get to see the bomb tick down. If it's a properly good written show. And even then, event spoilers are less of a deal than emotional spoilers, I feel like. Where, like, if you told me a character's arc and you spoil the arc, I would be more likely to be sad at that than you telling me that, by the way, spoiler alert for Game of Thrones, all seasons, that in the Red Wedding, everyone dies, If you spoiled, like, Jaime's full arc, that would hit me harder than an event.
Because you get to see that character grow, and I think that's like I can like spoilers already. Like I can tell you that Jaime and Cersei die in Red Keep holding on to each other, but that doesn't ruin the character development that he goes throughout the entirety of the series.
We'll talk about that.
Well, but it also does because
It super does. It's realistic but also unfulfilling. Okay,
Yeah.
how do we want to structure this? This is going to be our final Game of Thrones episode unless Bradley watches it.
then I'll be I won't be as enthusiastic to talk about it, I think.
Yeah, it'll go way faster in the future.
Like if Bradley read it, I would 100% jump back on like reread the books with him because I think the books have so much depth to them that they are like I think I told my dad this. I don't know if I told you, but the second book in the series is like one of my top 5 books of all times.
Hey.
It's so good. But yeah,
I think if Bradley watched it, I wouldn't rewatch it, but I'd still add some conversation in there.
yeah, I agreed.
So should we go through like every season and give our overall thoughts and then just finish off with the last season? Because this is the big spoiler cast, I guess.
Yeah. So how about the way we do this is we put seasons 1 through 6 as its own thing. We discuss those.
Okay.
And then the last 2 seasons we discuss separately because maybe even bump it down to like 1 through 5. Because 1 through 5 is essentially pace by pace for the book, with some exceptions in 5, and then 6, 7, and 8 are all
okay. We can play it that way.
Yeah, written by D&D and whatever.
Though I think we should talk about then each of those seasons as their own separate thing because shit changes so much.
Yeah.
In those last 3, but okay, those first 5 seasons. At that point, Game of Thrones is a top 3 TV show for me. It's not as good as Breaking Bad, but it's probably like third or second. Just the characters, the writing, the world, the dialogue, it's all on point. The actors are phenomenal. That's a big part where like you might not care about the TV show because there's less written depth, but the stuff they do visually and with the music is just also powerful. That like
as a show, like in terms of partially direction, cinematography, and acting wise, it's like top tier phenomenal. Like it's
even in the later seasons, like you can always say that except for Battle of Winterfell, everything is super well shot and acted and stuff.
Yeah, got Daenerys and like her last like big speech she gives was crazy. Like that woman like acted her heart out, and it was great.
She learned acting through this show. She even says this, like she started so new. So
seasons 1 through 5, for me, seasons 1 and 2 were very good. I really enjoyed them. Season 3, because it shifts its focus to Catelyn and Robb, I really had less of an interest in it because they weren't my favorite characters, and that's more of a personal thing for me.
Yeah,
they just don't interest me. With season 4 was with Joffrey dying and Tyrion's, and it's pretty interesting. And I really like season 5 compared to you, Willer.
Yes, you do.
I really like the sept plot of it.
Ugh.
Yeah.
We'll talk about it later. Hold on, let's back it up. So, season 1, I feel like I like less than most people. Where I don't think that season is particularly interesting, especially on a first watch. And it's still, on a second watch, still a bit harsh. Until episode 6. Whenever Ned finds out that Joffrey and Tommen and Mary, who's the other? Marcella, are Jaime's children. I couldn't get a feel for what this show was going to be and what I should care about. There were so many characters introduced to you right off the bat. The world is already so rich from the start, which is a positive, but it makes the plot all the more muddled. But as soon as he figures that out and he's confronting Cersei and Littlefinger is starting to become more of a player, that's when the show takes a hold and it rides that out for the rest of the season. So the first half of the season, I don't have any particular feelings for, and the second half I really like, so I'd probably give it like a 4.
And that's how it is, I think, in the books, if I'm remembering correctly. Like they kind of dick around in Winterfell for a long time, and they go on the King's Road, and
Mm-hmm.
everything, and it really doesn't pick up and like oh, this is a series about political intrigue and politics
Yeah.
and backstabbing, and like
It's
Ned,
weird because you only retroactively start to care about stuff where it's like, I don't care that this Jon Snow went to the Night's Watch. This means nothing to me. And then when you're like in season 2 or 3, you look back on it, it's like, man, that's a big deal and stuff
Yeah.
like that.
and that's always a problem with fantasy novels and why I don't like to read them as much, because it's like it's hard to make a character the dumb character that has to be like taught everything in this world.
Yeah.
Which
Yeah, that's true. You need someone to feed
That's why
exposition
it's so
to.
popular, because you can make this world and then you have a go-to default character that doesn't know anything about this world.
Yeah.
I think The Witcher does it best, in my opinion, where you have the opposite, where the person you're following is literally a walking encyclopedia about everything in this world, basically.
And he's teaching people around him.
Yes.
Hmm.
So that way, like, not only do you have this character that's a badass and knows everything, and it's believable to know everything, you also get these moments of interjection where he's talking to a peasant. He's like, I don't understand what you're talking about. It's like, all right, let me explain it to you. And he explains the monster and whatever.
And he also explains it to the viewer.
Yeah.
But
But you don't learn that way. But yeah.
But like I said,
agree.
that second half very strong.
Yeah.
Ned getting killed, big moment in television. That's when people get sold on this show.
Yeah. Which also kind of tells you, it also kind of shows weakness, is that everyone's looking for that episode 9 like plot twist point,
Yeah.
essentially. And it kind of it's really telling that if that's what you're like leaning against the whole time, you don't have a really strong structure, I feel.
People
Like,
really
climaxes are
want deaths in Game
Yeah.
of Thrones and that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm. But also when Ned dies, I remember reading the book, it clicked a switch in my brain where it's like, okay, I can't look at these characters as like, I can't get overly attached to these characters anymore. I have to look at them more as pieces on the board, and how that how their actions affect the other actions of other characters or other world events. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I'm very proud of young Joe for figuring that out, because I feel like for me and most people, that doesn't actually click until season 3
And
in the Red Wedding.
yeah, no, and it definitely, and I think it's better in the second book is so good because you only are told events through unreliable sources,
Right.
essentially. So you have to kind of piece. So you go back to the chapter where you see it leading up to this event, and then you read the next chapter that tells you the aftermath of the event, and you have to piece together what actually happened.
Damn.
Yeah,
That's pretty interesting.
but that doesn't matter because it's a TV show. And we have to see everything.
Yeah.
But for me, that's when the show is interesting, where you have to like start looking at like an actual game, and there's like chess pieces and everything on the board, and you have to see where everyone's moving and seeing how they will collide and what that event means for everyone else.
Yeah, and that really clicks with me eventually, but not initially. So, season two is the one I remember the least specifics of, except for the Battle of Blackwater, but I remember liking it a lot. Is this the one where Jaime is with Brienne?
This is the one. This is the one where she is, I think, where he is mostly captured by Catelyn and is released at the end of this season.
Okay.
Yeah, and so
Okay, bad season for Jaime.
yeah.
What's
Well,
Tyrion doing again? He's the
What'd you say?
hand. Tyrion's the hand at this point.
Tyrion's the hand, which is my favorite part of the whole show, because it really, that part really solidifies, like, Cersei is like, it really solidifies Cersei's motivations and what she wants, who Joffrey is, Sansa's plight, like everything in King's Landing. So
King's
gold.
Landing plot is really good because it also has Tywin and Arya, right? As she's
No,
like,
Tywin's out like doing the other part of the war because he's trying to get Jaime back, because he's trying to like pin down Robb Stark, but he can't.
right. Yeah, that was a really good season too.
You also have like Renly and fucking Sir Loras and Stannis.
It introduces Renly and Stannis, which Stannis is my favorite character of the show for a long time, because out of all of these characters, he's the most duty bound, because he was promised he wasn't promised the throne, but he was promised something by Robert, and he held down Storm's End, I believe. It's been a long time. He holds it down for days and weeks, or possibly months.
It's either Storm's End or Dragonstone or Harrenhal.
I want to say it's Dragonstone then.
Yeah, it's Dragonstone. Yeah, because he's based in fucking Dragonstone.
Yeah. He's given that, even though he fought so hard for his brother, and all he's that was his duty. He did his duty, and now that Robert is dead, he's coming down, and the throne is his, and his
Robert
plot.
is dead, and like rumors are spreading about Joffrey's heritage.
Yeah. So he's like, I'm the heir, and you know what? I suffered. I did my part. Now it's my time to get my claim for the throne.
Right.
And I've just always liked his dry personality in contrast to all the really colorful ones. He's a dry personality that works really well for me. And it's fun to watch him get manipulated by Melisandre. I actually really like her and how she plays him and all that.
And it's funny because you mentioned duty, but that kind of like ties into like something that's told to Jon by I think, is it Aemon or is it Jorah Mormont?
I think it's Mormont at this point.
Yeah, where it's like love's the death of duty, and that comes back later for Stannis, like in one very, very rough scene. Ooh,
that was Aemon then that said love is the death of duty, because they bring it up in the finale.
Yeah.
But yeah, people say that's character assassination, but I'm like, no, it makes sense.
Yeah.
It's just brutal.
Yeah.
On to season 3, which you don't like as much as me. I think season 3 and 4 are peak Game of Thrones. Both are 5 out of 5s.
Yeah.
But I liked Robb and Catelyn, so that explains that. I really like Jaime and Brienne.
Jaime's very good. Like Jaime's that character where you're like, this guy's a fucking asshole. Especially like in the second season, because he literally strangles his cousin to death to break out of jail.
Yes.
And like you really do not like this guy, and like by the end of season 3, you're like, I kind of get where Jaime's coming from.
By the end of season 3, he's a top 3 character for me, where that scene with him and Brienne in the bath, where he's talking about the burden he had to take by killing the Mad King, is just so powerful, and it shows so much depth to his character, where there's more to him than Cersei. He did it because he thought it was right to save the innocents, which he disregarded in season 8.
And Jaime is like, I feel like, is the poster boy for what people say they like about the show, and the writers don't understand what that actually is.
So you're saying like a complex character who is kind of morally bad.
Jaime, if you took like a very, very like far back look at it, Jaime is essentially the quintessential knight in shining armor, best swordsman, totally handsome. Everyone like loves him, or not everyone loves him, but like, you know, he's
very
pretty
popular character.
Yeah. But then when you zoom in on him, like you find out that he has sex with his sister. He's kind of like, he's pretty egotistical on his own like prowess, but he also, even though he does care about for protecting other people, and like, you know, that there is this nugget of him that like will sacrifice like his own honor to protect the citizens, even though he knows that damns him for life, essentially. And so that ends up painting him in a worse light for everyone else, but at the same time he's doing what we expect knights to do, which is do the right thing.
And this is the season then that also has Arya and Tywin, right? So I was wrong. It was in this season.
Arya and Tywin?
Yeah.
No.
Where she's like his servant.
That's season 2.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, because Tywin's in Harrenhal and then rides out to King's Landing to relieve King's Landing.
Yes. The Robb plot line is you get fooled for a second because it's so romantic, and then you're brought back to reality where it's like, no, you have to break oaths to get this romance, and that does not fly in Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
So I really like that season. Red Wedding's a great moment in television.
Yeah.
Very what the fuck. Any other good plot lines? We haven't talked about Dany at all.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Well, I'll also to say about the Red Wedding. The Red Wedding is also the first point where the show really diverges from the books. Because like the Red Wedding happens and you see Catelyn die, but at the very end of that book, it's revealed that she is alive.
Yeah, she's Lady Stoneheart or whatever the fuck.
Yeah, and she's part of the Brotherhood Without Banners, which has its own implications later. And so it's just kind of like, so that already diverges.
See, but that's the fanfic book. We're talking about the canon shit show of the show. So,
I'm saying like that's kind of like where like things start diverging. That's just like a decent point to point that out, I feel.
Yeah, I've heard of this one.
Yeah.
Danny, up to this point, I liked her arc. But it's that
season 1 is so fucking good, and in book 1, like the things she has to go through and deal with, and
her rise.
It's great and it's empowering. Like it feels awesome.
I also like her march to free the slaves. What I don't like is this is the season is it this season or next season where she stays in Marine and rules?
So in season 2 she's in Karth and she deals with the warlocks. So
Okay.
in season 3 she gets the Marine, she marches to Marine and she frees the slaves.
Yes.
And I realized this after I finished this show. I was thinking about it. I think I mentioned to you this, is that the Marine plot needed to be shortened and she needs to come to
Westeros. Like in season 5.
Yeah, or something. Because she so we're gonna just the point for Marine to me is to tell Danny that it's really fucking hard to rule an actual kingdom.
Yes.
Like you can't win over everybody, and she has to learn that.
This I appreciate. It just went for a long time, but yeah.
Yeah, that's a very important character moment where she has to definitively sit on one side or the other. She can't actually please everybody. And she ends up learning that at the very end of season 6 or something like that. Is that right?
I think so.
Yeah, and you're just like, and she's there for a long time, and it feels way too long, which is funny because the other seasons are way too short for her character development.
Yeah, for how important that other half of it is.
Yeah.
Let's move on to 4. 4 is my favorite season of the show.
4 is really good.
Joffrey's death. Sansa is with Littlefinger.
Yeah.
For most of the season.
Viper versus the Mountain. We're introduced to, like, the Dorne.
Yeah. The Dorne gets introduced and it's actually interesting at this point.
Yeah.
The Night's Watch is gearing up. Jon has already met Ygritte, and he's already had a connection with the North.
Yeah.
So the war, the big battle of the season is the Night's Watch versus the Wildlings, right?
That's not Harrenhal, Homeward, or...
No, I think you're thinking of Hardhome, but that's season 5.
Oh, is it?
This is the one where the Wildlings march to the wall.
That's right. It's the siege on the wall.
Yes.
Is that season 4? I thought that was season 3. No, it's season 4.
I want to say it's 4. Yeah, because at the end of it, Stannis shows up, saves everyone. Why did he do that again? That's what I don't remember.
Because he loses Blackwater Bay, which means he has no force.
Yes.
So Melisandre tells him, well, if you go north, you can probably get the wild. She predicts you can win over wildlings,
right?
Your army.
Yeah, and he beats them, and he tries to get Mance to surrender, but he doesn't. So he kills Mance. And this is him. He lost that play, so this is him spiraling into more despair, and he has to grasp at more straws. Dany's plotline not very good at this point. It's still good, but like.
In season 4,
she started ruling at this point.
Yeah, and the Sons of the Harpies show up.
Yeah, but the Sons of the Harpy aren't annoying until season 5.
Yeah.
Anything else that's notable that's going on? Arya's journey.
Brienne fights the Hound, doesn't she?
Yes, Brienne and Arya are together this season, right?
No, Brienne finds Arya and the Hound, and then
Arya and the Hound, which is a really good relationship.
Yeah.
And at this point, I think everyone loves Arya. At like season 3 and 4 is peak Arya times.
I
everyone
agree.
Loves her.
Seasons 3 and 4 are peak Arya, and Arya kind of goes off the
Yeah,
rails.
this is very important to say because next season is the season where I start hating her. So, yeah, just not to linger on it too much. I really like season 4. It's definitely my favorite.
I like that fight between Brienne and
the Hound.
Because the Hound finally fights someone that's like willing to go the lengths to win a fight.
Yeah.
Because all the other people that he fights,
they're scared.
Yeah, they fight very honorably, and they fight like knights should. Brienne's like, fuck you, I'm biting your goddamn ear off.
But he also fights those scumbags when he's traveling with Arya, so that's not fully true. He fights some scumbags,
Well, I mean,
some
like in
Lannister
terms
boys.
of like a knight, like
Okay,
on,
yeah, yeah.
on a level that they should be at to fight the Hound. You know what I'm saying?
Hmm.
Like those are just schmucks. Like Arya kills them.
So let's go into season 5. Arya's plotline is terrible in the season.
That's when she goes to Bravos, right?
Yes, and she does her training, which doesn't amount to anything, and she gets stabbed 10 times, and she
No,
just
she
leaves
gets
at
that
the
in
end.
season 6.
Was that in season 6?
Was it in season
I
6?
think her whole training wrapped up.
No, it was.
No, she's trying to start her training. That was really frustrating.
Most of it, at the end, she ends up killing Walder Frey.
Yes, but season 5 has that beginning portion, which I really didn't like.
Mm-hmm. It feels like you're like beating around the bush and you're running around like they're just killing time and you're like it's not going anywhere.
That is what I remember thinking about it.
Yeah.
I don't like the High Sparrow plotline. I know you do. I thought it was very frustrating to sit through.
Oh, I loved it because all this time Cersei is trying to manipulate people and she's been very successful at it. And then she's like, this fucking Marjorie Tyrell bitch is fucking my son and I don't like it.
God, Marjorie's so good. We haven't gotten to talk about her yet, but
yeah,
she played the game so well. She would have been the best queen in the whole show.
And then so Cersei has to come out and like she's like, I'm gonna do this thing and it's really gonna fuck her, but ends up shooting herself in herself in the foot, which is great.
Also, her old lover comes back and now he's converted, and
yeah, Lance.
This ends with
who I don't think is the same actor.
It's not. I can't be. He looks so different.
He's like ripped.
He got big in his religious village pilgrimages. This season ends with her escaping like her captivity, right?
Does the shame walk.
She does the shame walk. That was like one of the climaxes of the season.
Yeah, and that's like the last event in the 5th book, I think.
The Night's Watch is dealing with Stannis, and then he leaves, and they accept the wildlings, and they have Hardhome, which is arguably the best action scene in the series.
Yeah, I think I'm with you on that.
It's between that or Battle of the Bastards for me.
I didn't enjoy Battle of Bastards as much. Hardhome had that. I mentioned this when we were talking about in-game, but I really like it when a battle has some sort of meta kind of attachment to it, other than sieges, because I think like castle sieges have their own kind of cool effects to it. Like I like Battle of Blackwater Bay, but this one had the whole like we have to get everyone on the boat, we got to get the boats out, we have
that
to,
was a good objective,
yeah. So you have these, not only your heroes fighting for their lives, but you also have them. You have this additional stake of we have to do this other thing,
and it drops the bombshell of the Night King raising all of the dead that fought in that battle, and that was such a good moment. It really sold them as a threat,
and really it also shows there's a difference between White Walkers and actual just like zombies or whites, whatever they're called. And really kind of points out like this is why the babies were so important.
And Jon 1v1's one of the commanders, and it's a tough ass fight. Like he was a real big threat.
Not that it matters in the end.
Not that it matters in the end. This is why I'm bringing it up. It's continuity. I have better continuity than D&D. Let's talk about Bran. We haven't talked about him yet, and this is a good time to touch on him. Bran early on is one of my favorite characters and has the most interesting plot line for me.
Yeah. So to me, and it kind of really shows if you watch the entirety of the show as quickly as I did, you realize that Bran and Daenerys have the least amount of screen time, like in terms of like their plots.
Seriously, I feel like they have the most importance. Where every season, I'm like Daenerys and Bran are like the most guaranteed last season survivors because their plot lines are so important. I feel like.
Which doesn't matter.
Doesn't.
But to me, that kind of solidifies from like as I was watching this, like they don't know what Dany and Bran are supposed to be ultimately leading to. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Wow. You know what? You're super right.
Because when you have such little screen time, your events should be very important. But But with the exception of like Bran in season whenever he's in the tree, I think that's 6.
That's season 6, but season 5 is him traveling with the two people he met. I forgot their names. One of them is
Marine.
Yes, and who he met in season 3 after he went north of the wall in season 2. So he's had a big journey to get here, and he has to get to this tree, and he gets there, and it's finally the culmination of this character where it's like, you know, every time we see this character, he's making slow progress. Meanwhile, Daenerys, like, they freeze Daenerys in place to give her life lessons, but they just, like, give Bran a constant progress. It's just super slow. Because, like you said, they don't really know what they're doing. Right. So he gets to the tree.
Bran's the biggest one, I think, that no one knows what it's supposed to be.
God, it could have been so much. It's the biggest disappointment of the show, I think. Like, number one.
I agree with you. I don't agree with you where it should have gone, but I agree with you that it's the biggest disappointment in the show.
If it would have gone anywhere, that's at least something. But okay. Season 5, not a fan. What are some other big plot lines in it? Jon gets killed at the end.
Jon gets stabbed, which is ironic.
And and Stannis. This is not the season where Stannis. Okay, it is.
Yeah, I think so.
I thought it was 6. Man, so Stannis murders the child now? Yeah.
Yeah, no, like Stannis. Yeah, Stannis kills his child and then tries to take Winterfell and then loses.
No, that
because the beginning of season 6 is Melisandre and Davos being like, we have to wake Jon up, because that's the whole plot.
Yep. Okay, you're right. That's how it went, and that's what gave Bolton a rise to power. So now let's talk about Bolton and Theon, right?
Oh man, Theon has probably the best arc.
Theon's arc is fantastic, and you've told me how it's also interesting in the book because we don't get to see that it's with Reek is Theon for a while, which is pretty fun.
Yeah, and Theon's arc is the most like predictable in terms
of just
like,
well written, you know.
Yeah, and like you can see like, oh, this is what his arc is supposed to be, like his redemption arc and of such.
And it is the one arc that is 100% fulfilled, I think, by season 8.
Yeah, that moment, like at the end, it feels so good because you're like, all right, I'm happy where Theon is in his journey. It's at an end, but like I feel satisfied for it. But yeah.
So Ramsay Bolton is a really good villain to hate. We didn't talk about Joffrey either. Joffrey is really good. Let's just get that out there.
Joffrey is like Joffrey is not nothing, but he's there to provide direct conflict for Tyrion
and Sansa.
And kind of really, and there's another theme to this show or to the books that I feel like the show does an okay job of at the beginning of the series, and then really falls off in doing it by the end of it, and then tries to call back to it later in the very last episode, and it's just like, okay. But I'll get to that after we kind of go through every season, which is taking a long time.
Yes, it is. But we're also getting some characters out of the way.
Yeah, but
Ramsay's OP. He's Euron, but more enjoyable.
He is. I agree with you. And
him and his good men just burn all of Stannis' troops.
Yeah, he takes 20 dudes out, and his dogs are invincible, apparently.
Yeah, but you love, like, he gets an emotion out of you, and it is a genuine emotion, and when he's not being OP, he is working for it, and he's got a backstory.
Ramsay was at his best when he was torturing Theon.
Yeah.
Which is weird to say.
But when he's torturing Sansa, that's also really good. Which, season 6, Sansa's with Theon, or sorry. Well, yeah, she's with Theon and Ramsay.
Yeah.
And she's getting her life lessons in this season, and it's really rough to watch.
Yeah. That doesn't happen, by the way, in the books. She's fine. She doesn't get raped or anything, but that's like 100% D&D written, if I remember correctly.
I feel like it's so important for her character, though. I feel like it might still happen.
It may be, but like she's still with Littlefinger at this point. But I think they're yeah. Yeah. But go on.
Let's talk about Sansa real quick. She's had a really good character arc at this point, in my opinion.
Yeah. So Sansa went from I hate this bitch to goddamn Sansa's amazing. Sansa to me is like what everyone loves about Daenerys, but is actually like good. Does that make
interesting sense? Yeah. She by the end of the show, even in the last 3 episodes, she didn't get to do much, but she was probably my favorite character at the end of the show.
Because you really feel like she has grown
powerful
and
like,
naturally and
yeah.
forcefully, but not like, you know what I mean.
Mhm.
Any other good thing? So I don't like season 5 very much, but I do like 6. I don't like the Arya stuff too much, but at this point, I don't really like Arya in general, which is a controversial thing to say.
Yeah.
But I like all the other plot lines.
I mean, when Arya gets stabbed like 4 times in the gut, and
Yeah,
it's just
she's just a little murder boner child at this point. It's just edgy, popular girl.
Mhm.
Battle of the
I didn't
Bastards,
look at this,
fantastic.
but she has the almost like Bran's ability in the books to go warg. Like she can see through her wolf's eyes and everything.
That's weird.
Yeah, like so, like just to show like how much more different like the books and crazier they get.
So with Bran,
Yeah,
they start doing all these cool flashbacks with him that don't lead up to anything. Really disappointing. Just in general, I shouldn't say it much because like there's only so much I can say, but he is the most drop ball in the show, and anything involving him. And also, it's weird because the three-eyed raven before him had a personality.
yeah.
Why the fuck couldn't Bran keep his personality? That would have made him such a better character.
I agree. And
Anyways,
it really been a much better character arc where it's like, all right, you're a boy now, and now you're God. Deal with that, and he has to like struggle with the ability. Like, it's like, how do I balance myself of these powers and everything?
maybe he did off screen, and the end result is boring, staring off into nothing. Bran.
Oh god, it's so uninteresting when you don't see that struggle. Like, it's
Yes.
okay if he comes to that, like with
It could be
Daenerys,
tragic, even. Wouldn't that be cool? Like,
yeah.
Whatever.
All right, so season 7.
Season 7. I like this season more than you.
Perhaps season 6 is probably is which I was really blown away with because I thought it was terrifically shot and executed. Was Cersei blowing up the set?
Beautiful.
It was.
God, it took her all season to do it.
Mm-hmm.
I forgot about that. I thought it was earlier.
No,
Tom and Suicide's really good too.
Yeah, and like it feels and like the way it's shot and
The
way,
music.
like, you think that you're seeing her prepare for this trial that she's already at, and she's like looking out the window, and you think she's like contemplating about what's going to happen when really she's just waiting for the bomb to go off, and it's great.
Rest in peace, Marge.
God, Queen of Cleveland.
She's so good. Yeah, please. White Walker Marjorie still fine. Season 6 does not end with the Jon Snow thing. That's season 7. So season 7, Jon goes out to Dany. He needs her help to fight the Nightwalkers. This is a big preparation season.
That's underneath her fort and
Yes.
her men. But yeah,
Yes. That's it. He falls in love with her in like 3 episodes.
God, I hate that so fucking much.
Yeah, needed more time.
Like it happens to Rob, but there are moments when you see Rob doing his thing and she's doing her thing. You're like, okay, I can understand why they are falling in love and why this is happening. Like it feels earned, but
like I feel like Daenerys is only falling in love because she could smell the Targaryen, and the incest is a plus for her.
yeah, and like it's just like, and it's not like John and Dany have these moments where like they're sitting at a dinner table on this like pseudo date and they realize they have this really good banter and back and forth on each other. Every interaction they have with each other is literally business.
Yeah.
And like just about like, I need you to help me out here.
Only if you bend the knee.
Yeah, and you're just
I
like,
will burn you.
my queen.
McQueen. We'll talk about McQueen later, but this season in general is just too fast for me, but I like what's happening. A lot of people don't like the plot line of bringing the White Walker in, and I don't like how they do it because it's so stupid, where they go over the wall and Gendry has to run like 1,000 miles and the Night King's just chilling watching.
Yeah,
really weirdly executed. That's my least favorite part of the season.
It's so weird because you showed me a video and he kind of expresses why I don't like the plot ultimately, and at the same time, like, I don't know what else you would do, because I really like that scene they have when they bring the White in and Cersei gets scared and they realize this is real, like the fantasy stories are real.
And what's nice is also like, that's a nice part of, like, I'll defend that about season 7 a lot, is it has a lot of good characters coming together finally, and that's definitely one of them.
Yeah,
and I agree, like, that is a valid plan to show Cersei the reality of it, and Tyrion thought he could convince her. Now, I don't know why he thinks he can convince her another 3 times.
Yeah.
Um,
The thing is too is like the other thing is like that episode is so plot armor heavy that it's kind of upsetting. Like I'm usually one that's like I don't like plot armor, whatever you need it for your characters, but this was like really like let's take every major player we have at the moment, just put them all in one spot and have
let's
them go.
not lose a single one.
Yeah, with the exception of the priest, but who gives a fuck about him? Like
Joe, surely it won't get worse than that.
yeah.
Another plot line is the Winterfell one. Sansa is getting her power back as Jon is being a little bitch.
Jon gets crowned king of Winterfell or king of the North, but then immediately leaves to go get his dick wet.
And Sansa's like, "Well, I guess I will rule. I guess I've built up to this." Arya's kind of just like that plot line where Arya and Sansa are pretending to conspire against each other. That's also dumb.
That could have been much better executed.
Yeah. That one needed more time, and it would have been good.
and like because I think the payoff would have been great. It just
Let's talk about Littlefinger.
oh yeah.
All right, Littlefinger has been one of the best, most entertaining characters of the show so far.
Big fucking nerd.
He has really interesting motivations. He plays the game really well. He's really good at politics. The show stops being about politics in season 7, which isn't a problem because it's action time, you know.
Yeah, you've come to like right now. Like it's the White Walkers are coming. Dany is here. But
either way, they didn't know what to do with him.
Play my own like personal beliefs about like when Dany should have come in and what should have followed aside. Right, this is the time where like we had to start doing more actions and less like backroom meetings and discussions about chaos and whatnot.
And it means that Littlefinger has no place, and they kill him off really anticlimactically. And he's the character that started this whole goddamn show.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It all traces back to him. So, well,
Yeah.
there you go.
And it really is. And I think the thing is one character we never talked about is Varys, like at all.
I was waiting for season 8. We'll bring up Varys.
Okay.
Varys is very similar, where he's very politics driven. And we will talk about him in a second.
But I wanted to bring up that Varys and Littlefinger have very foilistic ideals. Where Varys the entire time, and you really don't get this until you see him go back to him to reveal that like I'm trying to set Dany up as the ruler of Westeros. That Varys is like I'm trying to pick the best person for the throne. I'm trying to get to where the best people are in power. That's why I trusted you, Tyrion. That's why I tried to like put you in the position you were.
Mm-hmm.
But Littlefinger is I want to fuck Catelyn Stark, and I will do everything in my power to get into that position. If I can't fuck her, I'll fuck her sister, and then her daughter, and then someone else. Like,
Woo.
That's his whole motivation. And like, you know, I can respect the man for, you know, getting his dick wet or whatever. But and kind of, but they're foils. Like,
yes,
Littlefinger is doing it for a very selfish reason. Varys is trying to do it for the greater good.
Yes, and they have really fun conversations. Chaos is a ladder, which Bran is really good at one-liners. I'll say that. That's all he really has.
That's like the only time, the only moment that it felt so good, like in that whole segment of him finally dying. That like, you know, Bran is like, I know who you fucking are. Like he knows everything. Like it feels good in that moment when he says it to him, because Littlefinger's like, I've only said that to one other person.
Let's ride this wheelchair of Bran into season 8 and talk about Bran in season 8.
Well, is there anything in season 7?
I think we talk about Winterfell. There's the Sand Snakes plot line. That's bad.
Oh yeah.
But there's a fun adventure, and we can talk about Bronn. I really love Bronn. He gets done really dirty in season 8.
Fucking capped in season 8.
Character-wise, character cap. Okay. They never utilize Bran, which is really frustrating, and it really shows that D&D didn't know how to balance Bran, so they just decided to ignore him.
The only person that used Bran was fucking Sam, who was like, "Can you like validate this for me?" When he tells him to go back in time to like see Rhaegar and Lyanna Stark get married.
Yeah, which was a really good reveal that ends season 7. As Jon is fucking his aunt. And then there's Tyrion decides to ask him, "What the hell are you?" And that plays into the finale. But
And that
they
conversation
never
should have been more
use.
fleshed out. Like that should have been like,
That should have been in the screen. That should have been fleshed out. Period. Not more
Yeah.
fleshed out.
yeah.
And it's just we've talked about Bran. He's the biggest disappointment. His story went nowhere. He just sat in the woods so the Night King could use him as bait. Nothing interesting happened between the two. Let's talk about the Night King. Wow.
Yeah. Okay. So first off, the series is called A Song of Ice and Fire, and it relates to two things: dragons, the White Walkers, and Dany and Jon. Like
Yes.
that's the two things immediately that come to your mind. That's what they're about, and it blows my mind. Like I just don't get it. Because I'm speechless because the whole point of the show, the whole kind of background threat that's happening are these White Walkers. And the White Walkers are symbolize winter and symbolize death. That there's an inevitability of them coming. They are coming regardless of whether you want to or not.
And
Like,
the idea is that all your quarrels and politics and all that, that's all useless in the face of death.
yeah. Like that's like the one of the biggest themes of the show. It doesn't matter how much you plan, if you're dead, you're dead. Like
Yes.
and like oh my god. I don't know like ultimately what they should have done because I can't tell you.
Here's an easy one. They they beat out the crew and drive them south, and that way you have a battle between the three factions, and Dany
Yeah.
can kind of like go on a rampage and kill her own soldiers, kill Lannister soldiers, to get to the Night King. Like you can tie that into turning Dany crazy. You can tie that into the two human factions having to work together and then betraying each other, which gets to both of the themes of the show.
And I agree with you on that. And like so I for what how I pictured kind of like my bittersweet ending for the show. I feel like we also need to talk about Dany because she has the other thing that I
Yes.
knew was kind of going to happen.
Yeah, Mad Queen Dany, definitely
Yeah.
foreshadowed, but way rushed.
Yeah, and so the video we watched, they talked about how they assassinated your character, and I can kind of see, yes, you're true on that, but it's also like you can see her. That's where she needs to end up in the fact that like she is one of two apocalyptic events for Westeros, essentially.
Yeah.
And so Dany coming in, destroying King's Landing is kind of like, to me, like, okay, it's fine. It's just the way they go about it and the way they get to that point is like, well, we have this really nice scenic route, or you can cut through the woods.
And the woods are ugly and,
Yeah.
and barren.
And you can ding up your car, scratch the paint, maybe lose a wheel along the way, but you'll get
Maybe
there.
lose your show's entire pride.
Yeah.
But you'll get there. So
and-
we've
yeah.
talked about our opinions on each episode of this season, so you know how we feel basically.
Yeah.
But yeah, Dany, like, justified, rushed, needed to be reworked.
And part of that ties into the fact that of her, to me, like the way you structure this is Dany gets the Dragonstone, and Jon is preparing for the White Walkers, and they have, and essentially Jon gets crowned King of the North, and people rally behind him, and then like for one season, it's basically Jon talking to Dany, and Dany like, okay, I'll help you, I understand, and they have to campaign around the North, essentially trying to win Dany over to these people, essentially. Like,
Sure.
Come to find out that everyone loves Jon. Like Jon's charismatic. They think he's great. They think he's like true king of the North or whatever. And Dany comes with the biggest reality shake in her life is that when she comes to Westeros, there are no slaves. There's no one really kind of being over like oh god, I'm losing. Like
She
there's no one
can't. She can't be the
over-
the heroine she's always been because
Right.
her only opponent is Jon, the perfect boy.
Yeah, and like she's not a liberator. Like in fact, to everyone else, she's just another invader. Like that.
Yes.
That's who she appears to be. And like to her, that's a harsh reality she has to come with. Like I am not I'm not here to like free people from slavery or from evil warlocks or
I am just
whatever.
an invader.
Yes, you re-exiled your family. And now you're coming back, and yes, everyone hates Cersei, but like Cersei wasn't really, at least from what I can remember, didn't really do anything to the common folk. The worst thing that happened while the Lannisters were in rule was Joffrey went around and killed a bunch of babies.
Well, she murdered a bunch of common folk when she exploded
That's
the
true.
church.
She also blew up the set, which I think,
But she was driven to a corner at that point, and it's not even close to what Dany did. And
right.
we can talk about Cersei real quick. I really like Cersei as a character, but by season 8, she was just a person who stares out a window and smirks.
Yeah.
I really like her character arc up till then. I really like how she maneuvers her the way she plays the game is really fun and in contrast with her father, and it gives a lot of tension for Tyrion and gives Jaime a lot of mixed emotions and problems.
And it's just
Jaime's became garbage, but we talked about that in a previous episode. Let's talk about the finale then, and we're gonna wrap up this Game of Thrones talk.
So sorry. Let me get back to what I thought would be my bittersweet ending or whatever it is.
Okay, yeah.
So they go in and so finally they have a sit down and Jon is like, listen, we are not going to be able to win over Cersei and beat the White Walkers without Daenerys. That's a kind of final like ruling on him as like King of the North essentially. Like he has to essentially force people into like just accepting her, right? So before the Night Walkers come, they have to go to Cersei and convince her, and that leads to them having the standoff in this battle. And Daenerys is just like, "Fuck it," and destroys King's Landing.
Right. There's no part with the surrendering bell. It is like maybe this is where one of her dragons dies. Yeah. And this is where she snaps, and she doesn't torch all of King's Landing, but she kills like a solid street of people as she's going up to the crypt or like the castle.
Yeah,
like, that would work better.
And she kills and she destroys the Iron Throne and the Keep and whatever. It essentially like loses the central power base of Westeros. And then you get to the point where like Dany dies, or Dany like has this just overcomes with terrible guilt. Like, I just murdered innocents for the sole reason of me being frustrated, and realizes that this is not the kingdom for her to rule, and either she dies by Jon killing her, or she flies off Drogon back to the west or east. And essentially the houses come down and they're like, well, we have to pick a new king. There's no Iron Throne, and and everyone goes like, fuck it. No more connected kingdoms. We're going to do things our own way. And they go off and do their own, and the North is like, the White Walkers are coming. We're going to get eaten by zombies. And no one cares. Like, they just don't care. And they go back. The North tries to hold off the White Walkers, and they get pushed back, and they get pushed back, and they get pushed back. And then finally, like, there's the remnants. We lose a few characters, and we get to the very end, and it's basically just like, well, we have two options. You know, we can either sail east, but that's where Daenerys is, and Daenerys doesn't like us because we didn't accept her as our queen. Or we can go west to the great unknown and see what that's like. And we have part of our characters go west, and we have part of our characters maybe go east. But the big thing is that like Westeros is fucked. It's gone.
Jesus.
It's like that whole system is just destroyed, and like going to the west is essentially like dying. Like you go off into the great unknown, you see what's out there.
So humanity, I mean, that's the ending that I think a lot of people would have liked, but it's not realistic because humanity loses super hard. What they do in your ending is that they do beat the Night King after getting pushed back, but at the sacrifice of Bran. So they lose an important part of the world's magic, and they
they lose their history and they lose their like roots.
Yeah,
the world
that works too. That's bittersweet. There's also the one I mentioned earlier. There's a whole lot of ways this could have been better.
It just to me, the big point that has to come here is that there's a realization that the way things are working don't work. That's the big revelation, is that the Iron Throne is pointless. It's just a big power struggle that just leads to death, and it's better that nobody wins and someone sits on the throne, and that's a cycle that will keep happening because regardless of who sits on that throne, someone's going to want that throne. Like that's the whole story, is that if you have power,
Someone wants that power.
Let's talk about the finale now, the actual finale, and how it spits in that. Okay.
What actually happened?
What actually happened after Joe's lovely, kind of grim, but pretty cool, pretty thematic finish.
Yeah.
Well, what do we get? We get Daenerys being straight up Nazi evil. She doesn't show any
Literally
remorse
has
for
a
what she
Nazi
did.
scene,
She has an actual Nazi scene. She has
which
a
was cool.
wonderful speech.
Yeah.
She sells the fuck out of that fake language.
Yeah.
Such a good actress.
Like I think that's fine. Like in terms of like what's happened. Like that's a cool shot and scene.
It's a cool shot and scene. I wish he wasn't so immediately evil, you know? I wish... Actually, another way you could have fixed last episode is have her stop the burning midway through, and then now she has to live with guilt that she's not really a good leader, and she's kind of struggling with that this final episode. But no, she's just pure evil now. Just pure evil. Grey Worm is also now an angry, edgy boy. He was kind of interesting in the past, but now he's just a one-note angry boy. By the way, Grey Worm is the final villain of Game of Thrones. I just want to bring that up. if it hasn't sunk in with any listeners out there. Out of all characters, Grey Worm is the final villain. Jon has a scene with Tyrion where Jon's so fucking annoying this season, man.
It's really disappointing because if we stuck to this series and like they made this season longer and they really built up that love that Jon has for Dany and really shows that how much they kind of could have been together, it really would have been a hard, bittersweet ending for Jon.
Yes. Instead, it was just like, shut up, Jon. She murdered millions, not millions, but almost a million. And it's like, we don't get why you love her so much. We don't get why Tyrion trusts her so much. We didn't talk about Varys, but Varys was good that last episode that he was alive.
Yeah.
He got back to politicking, but then he didn't whisper quietly enough and
that
died.
kind of shows also that Varys, like with Varys doing all that stuff, that you can still have that politics system going on even during these seasons.
Yeah, they just didn't try. Like they were like they did it with Varys. I thought they did a pretty good job, but yeah. So we don't get why Tyrion believed her for so long, but now Tyrion obviously was wrong, and he convinces Jon to kill her.
Yeah. I think more of he convinces Jon that she's not the right one to rule. I don't know about killing her, but yeah.
No, because he's like, I know what I'm asking you to do is difficult.
Oh, yeah. That's true. That's true.
There's a very big kill implication here, and Jon kills her. This is one of the worst scenes of anything I've ever watched.
I both like and hate this. I like it because I felt like it's very ironic that a dragon destroys the throne because it was forged by a dragon's fire. Get
your geeky shit out of here. Let's talk about the fact that Drogon can understand themes and symbolism of things he's never seen. Like, does Drogon understand that the Iron Throne, is he smart enough to know that the words Iron Throne means Iron Throne?
Yeah, that's the other thing that I was going to get to, is that I hate it because there's like, we understand that Dany has this connection to the dragons. Like, we get that. Like, and we can chalk that up to bloodline magic, voodoo.
It's magic. It's fine.
It's fine. But we've never seen a point in the show where the dragons showed some sort of, like, intellect to someone else.
Yes.
At least from what I can remember.
At best, the dragon snarls at Jon like an angry, like, brother or father.
Yeah.
That's very natural. People, like, animals fuck all the time, so, like, it's still animalistic. This dragon,
that would be the equivalent of a dog, like, kind of being on edge when they meet a new person at first. For some dogs.
What we got is that a dog destroys, like, terrorism or something.
Yeah.
Like a dog attacks a theme. Jesus Christ, man! And he doesn't fight Jon for some reason. He's like,
I thought for certain Daenerys was gonna fucking roast Tyrion on the spot too.
Yeah, he gets in prison so he can be plot relevant later.
Which I think is really dumb, considering that
she just killed 100,000 plus people.
And, like, she took the Tarlys, like, oh, you're not gonna surrender me? All right, I'll just burn them to death. Or Viserys, like, didn't even get in prison, was just taken out, marched outside, and burnt on the fucking coast.
It's plot armor.
Yeah.
We've talked about plot armor before, especially in episode 3. Check out our previous videos. Yeah. This leads us to a jarring 2-week skip, where you get one of the most baffling scenes in all of Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
And one of the worst scenes in the show.
Really cool scene, too.
there's parts of it that like I chuckle and I laugh at, like are pretty fun, but conceptually the scene is bonkers because Grey Worm marches Tyrion out. He's like, no talking. Tyrion proceeds to give a very big speech, where he convinces everyone to abolish the monarchy system and instead have like a electoral college style.
Yeah, it's like, almost like a republic.
Yeah, but it's a republic where the people aren't electing the people that represent them, but there are still people making a vote for a leader.
Yeah.
So you take Dorne and the Iron Islands that have always been independent. By the way, the Iron Islands have always had democracy, basically, and they laugh at the democracy joke, which is cool. Pretty consistent there. You take those two. You take you bring in Bran, who these people had never met, and everyone just accepts to be ruled by Bran, even though the Iron Islands and Dorne are super not okay with being ruled by a king of King's Landing, yet they accept this crippled child that they've never met. They don't understand what being the three-eyed raven means. We have no implication that they do.
Yeah.
God, and then Sansa backs out, and no one has a problem with that, and no one else backs out. Wouldn't it make more sense to have like
and like, well, no, we're not going to be part of this anymore. But like at the same time, like they also are like island people, so they need trade and connection to everyone else. But it's just
they fought the system before, right? In previous seasons. What would have been nice is that like four kingdoms break off and three stick together, and that's what Bran rules.
Yeah,
that would have made more sense given all the characters there. Bran being king, I kind of liked how unpredictable it was. He doesn't really have a human connection with the people, but potentially this is the scariest king they could ever have because he's basically Big Brother.
Yeah, like you literally can't like sneak any shit to him because it's just like, I see everything.
Thankfully, the show writers can't have Bran actually looking into anything relevant. So he probably won't catch anything. So he probably still needs a master whisper to tell him where to look, because he's basically internet. You got to know what to search.
Yeah.
You get the resolution of Jon going to be at Night's Watch, even though there's nothing to watch at the Wall anymore. It's just an exile.
I think that was more of, they knew the Night's Watch didn't exist and didn't matter, but they needed an excuse to satisfy Grey Worm, so Grey Worm wouldn't ask questions.
No, dude, it was not that deep.
You don't think so?
It was not that deep, bro.
You don't think so?
No. They just created a Night's Watch. What I told myself is that now that there's no Night King, they can explore further north, and that's their purpose, but it's unclear. I think they just created a Night's Watch without thinking about it.
I think there's that, or it's he joins the wildlings because that's like where his heart is like he like being up north and being separated, and he becomes king beyond the wall and blah 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 blah.
Yeah.
He becomes Jon Snow, aka Aegon Targaryen, Lord Commander of the Night's Watch, king beyond the wall, king of exile, some other bullshit. Queen Slayer.
What else? Arya's a pirate now. Yo yo.
Yeah, which is okay. Whatever.
Okay.
They'll bring back Macy
What's
Williams.
west of Westeros? Bran could find out in a second, but whatever.
I think Bran needs like a target location.
Oh,
but yeah,
does he?
Maybe. That's the thing too. Is they don't explore anything that Bran means. And, oh God,
it would have been really good, wouldn't it? Like there could have been some cool stuff exploring that. Like
so there's one theme that's in the books. It's really subtle, and you really, unless you're kind of looking for it can really sneak past you. But one of the big themes in the books is the difference between what actually happens and what really happened, and how like the common folks see that and understand that the people above know what actually happened, but the people below them are only told the stories of what happened.
Yeah.
And then the show,
they do bring up that like stories are a big deal, but they don't really do anything with that.
Yeah,
idea.
that's brought up at the very end of the episode of the last season, and it's just like, but that's the whole point of. That's one of the other themes of the books, is that because one of the big ones I can think of right off the bat is there's the story about Ned Stark killing the Day Knight or something, the guy that can wield two swords.
Wow.
Yeah, and it kind of solidified that Ned Stark is a complete badass. But then we find out that no, Ned Stark actually was going to lose, and then one of his like lieutenant stabbed the other guy in the back and let Ned get the win, essentially.
Yeah, stuff like
So-
I've heard of stuff like that. Yeah, I mean, Bran could have tied into that, but he was useless. Can't
Yeah,
spend
or-
too much time on Bran.
And so like it's never used, especially because when you introduce Bran and Bran can literally see what actually happens for everything, you have to. It's just
You have to ride around. You have to address it.
yeah.
They just ignore it.
It's an interesting theme because that's how you control the populace and that's how you get people to like accept your rule, and that's what Tyrion was getting at. Was like, you need someone that has a good enough story that people will be like, oh man, I love this guy, I trust him, and you have to give that to people.
I think you're being too smart for it again. Like the dialogue could be construed that way, but I don't think they thought that hard about it.
No, like Tyrion says that, like he literally flat out says that like people will only rule someone with a good story. That's why Robert Baratheon got the throne. He's the guy that won the war, so they gave him the throne.
That's such a rushed message. Like I barely caught that.
Trust me, Willer, I get it. Because and you have those other scenes too where at Joffrey's wedding they reenact the War of the King.
Yeah, that was a really good one.
And then later when Arya is like gonna kill the theater lady, they reenact Joffrey's death and everything else afterwards.
Mm-hmm.
So like there are glimpses into that theme that like facts are being construed and they're unreliable from people above you. Like that's a theme about social structure essentially.
Yeah.
But it's never talked about or never like really kind of fleshed
Never
out.
explored or fleshed.
Yeah.
I think the last one we haven't covered is Sansa's Queen. Good. She didn't do much last season, but she still probably ended up as my favorite character.
Mm-hmm. And in context of what we got, it's like, okay, yeah, I mean, sure, she essentially got everything that her brother was striving for,
but she actually wanted and actually was better at it than him. So
it really and that was also Ned's theme too. Is that Ned was part of the Seven Kingdoms and he ruled the North as like a vassal, but at the same time, it's like I don't want to get involved. I just want to deal with my own shit here. Like that's another big theme is dealing with your own shit. Yeah.
Lastly, you got the small council scene. I like that scene. Even Bronn, it doesn't make sense for Bronn to be there, and he was kind of shitty in season 8 in general. But I still like Bronn.
Bronn also has no money. Like,
it's fine. Under the Bran regime, Bronn can't get away with anything. So,
they made a new currency.
I like Brienne. Brienne was great. She wrote in the book that. And then Jaime fucked Brienne, and she was the best in bed ever. The end.
So I don't like Brienne and Jaime's romance. I feel that's very ham-fisted. Like it just, to me, the whole arc is Jaime learning that there is someone better at being a knight than him. Like that's kind of the whole arc.
But I also saw it as Jaime learning that he can love someone who's not Cersei. So I think it goes both ways.
Maybe, but I don't like that as much as...
It's fine.
Yeah.
I think that's it. Episode that wasn't as bad as I thought it would be because I set the bar real low.
Yeah.
At least I was surprised by things.
I said I'm both satisfied and disappointed in the ultimate conclusion of the show. Because it feels like really the climax of the show happens when Dany gets stabbed, and everything else kind of tumbles off after that.
And it's paced really weirdly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I would have also really liked, and it would have been really overly fantasy tropey, I know, but it just would have been enjoyable where we have this kind of like after moment where they kind of explain what happens after Bran rules and what that means for the rest of the world.
Yeah, because it's such an interesting concept. See, the problem with Bran ruling is that it's an interesting concept we'll never get to see anything of.
Right, that's why I'm saying you need that epilogue dialogue where, like, Sam is, like, talking about it or something where it's, like, Bran ended up ruling
and
the
then
kingdom.
Bran the Broken spied on everyone, and everyone was too afraid to do anything.
Yeah, or just something in general. Something that, like... Because the whole point of Game of Thrones is it was coming to a point. Like... There was a reason why these events took place and why you had to tell all these events, like How I Met Your Mother, to once to pull from another show that had a terrible ending, um the whole point of that show being for so long, what happens is there's a reason for all these events to happen, and you have to know all these events because it gives you context for what ultimately happens in the end. You know what I'm saying?
They still kind of explain that, but whatever. That's a different
But,
show.
what I'm saying is that like the show ends, but it doesn't end with kind of telling you like this is what this series of events meant for the entirety of the kingdom, like, or
Yeah.
the world. Like,
Yeah.
why was this story significant relative to the rest of the history? Like, why didn't we learn about, why did we focus on this section of history of Westeros and not the section of the Targaryens being overthrown? That's the question you need to answer by the end of the show.
I agree.
In a fantasy novel.
Like,
Same with Lord of the Rings. Like, why did we talk about the Lord of the Rings part of it and not, the Last Alliance part of that world? But yeah.
Game of Thrones, one of the best shows of all time. 3.5 out of 5.
I agree with you, Willer. I give it like a 3.5 out of 5. It's just when you have a show that go on for so long, you have to stick that landing.
Yeah, because you've invested so much time. Also, it really hurts when you started off so strong and you ended off so weak. It leaves a bad image.
Yeah. Especially when your writers and producers are like, nah, we can finish the show in 7 or 14 awesome episodes that are an hour and a half to 2 hours long. You're like, great, that sounds amazing. Nah.
David and Dan just kind of forgot how to write.
Yeah.
Yeah. Got anything else to say, Joe?
Well,
I'm good for Game of Thrones for the rest of my life now.
I agree. I think
until Bradley jumps on.
If Winds of Winter, if the series gets concluded, like fiction-wise, like literature-wise, I will probably read the series.
I'll tell you what, I like these characters so much, even though the book versions won't be the ones that I know and love. But if it gets finished, I might go ahead and read it as well.
The only problem with that is that like each book is like 800 pages long.
You know what? I won't read it.
Yeah.
I'll get some good summaries from you.
But I think that's kind of like the one thing I'm looking forward to is that there's another comparison point because like to give you an example, like what's so different, like Brienne's dead in the books.
The fuck?
Yeah, like Catelyn Stark, like it's like you didn't get my daughters back to me. It's like I couldn't do it. They went off and did their own thing, and it just fucking kills her.
Wow, Catelyn sucks. You're right, Joe. You were right all along. Maybe this is why you hated her so much.
But yeah, there's just
yeah.
I'm very interested in this, and I think like ultimately the events that happen outline bullet point will happen in the books.
Yes.
Like King's Landing will be burned by Daenerys. The White Walkers will come,
and I guess they'll get beaten before Daenerys.
I think that's told out of order. Like I feel like Daenerys will happen before the White Walkers.
That'd be nice.
Yeah, because
yeah.
But who knows?
Decent show.
Maybe fucking it just turned into a porn parody of itself in the last book, and you're just left with that.
Game of Bones. Wee woo, wee woo.
All right, well, that's gonna do it for us today.
No Jojolion quick talk. At 12. No, it's 11. Jesus.
Yeah, it's 11 o'clock.
We went for a long time.
Quick Jojolion. It's fucking hot, bro. You should read Jojolion.
Oh, we're doing this. Jojolion, me and Joe really like we're just jumping in. Me and Joe really like the Jojolion, which is a part of JoJo's.
The latest part.
It's the latest part. It's nice to talk about something good after being depressed over the ending. It's
monthly. I think this is Iraqi's tightest story he's ever told.
And people like to say that, like, oh, the plot doesn't go anywhere, or, like, it makes no sense. I don't think people are paying attention. They should probably reread.
Yeah, I think part of it is there's not a destination to get to. Like in Steel Ball Run, like they'll end up in New York. So the series is going to end when they end up in New York, essentially.
Plus, it has a defined villain halfway through, at least.
Yeah, maybe like a quarter of the way through, but yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But man, Jojolion, like as a mystery itself, is so good.
It's like Iraqi is remembering this part, which is making the mystery actually compelling. Which, again, I've seen criticism where people are like, "Oh, it's an uncompelling mystery." I feel like everything gets answered in like at a good pace. Every arc answers a little bit.
I think a lot of those people like it's the monthly schedule that bogs them down.
Totally.
And to me, like, I just have enough stuff going on in my life that, like, when the 19th rolls around, like, fuck yes. I get sad when I finish reading it, but I just, like, when that day rolls around, like, sweet, can't wait till next month. I can't wait to figure out what the fucking name of 2 different stands are.
We haven't even seen the other one.
3, maybe.
Oh, stop it, you. I mean, I guess we can get a bit into it. Recently, Chapter 85, was that the one that just came out?
I think 86. 86 was the one.
86 just came out, so we can...
Here's my theory. This arc will finish at 89.
Yeah, because the head doctor's age is 89.
Yeah.
3 more chapters? That sounds about right.
Yeah. I don't know how long been going, but yeah.
So we're currently in the head doctor arc. They're chasing down this head doctor, and Araki's doing this really smart thing, where in the past Araki would always focus on a fight and then do the story after and before fights.
Mm-hmm.
He's doing more of a One Piece now, where most of the chapter is moving the fight along, and then you get a big chunk of like really good story in between each chapter.
I wouldn't say a chunk, but good slice of what the story is.
Well, with the Jobin thing, it was still kind of a slice.
Yeah,
it was chunkier slice.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like what Oda's doing, but Oda likes to juggle like 6 plot threads, while Rocky's being smart, and every chapter he's juggling 2.
Yeah.
And it's gotten me really engaged. The head doctor has some crazy stand, or maybe it's Toru stand. It's hard to tell.
I think after this chapter, I think we can safely confirm it's the doctor stand.
Yeah, I agree. And a lot of people disagree.
He leaves, it stops happening. So.
Mm-hmm. People thought like what was happening was because of Toru's stand, but here's the thing: every time Toru is around Yasuo, he's always touching her,
mm-hmm. and that's an easy thing to play off to, because when you're affectionate towards someone,
mm-hmm.
you just kind of naturally touch them.
Mm-hmm. But Araki also draws attention to it enough to where like something supernatural is going on here,
mm-hmm.
and
other than Josuke getting cut.
Oh man, the chapter where he sees the text message from him, then he's a nice guy and he's like, "Hey Yasuo, you have a message." I felt so bad for my boy.
Uh-huh.
Big cucks.
This is a big like kind of It's crazy to me because he's balancing both Yasuo's and Josuke's like relationship development, the fight that's happening, and whatever Jobin and Suru are doing.
And now Ojiro. Yeah, like there's a lot of good balancing in these last few chapters.
And like I don't feel jarred whenever those sections come up. Like in One Piece, there are definitely times where like you're reading it and then like, all right, let's move to this part.
It doesn't help that Oda has been off-screening like key events to where it's really adding up in this Wano second act, but like it's finally coming to a head.
Yeah.
But Araki's showing us everything we really need to see to kind of get a grasp of what's happening here.
Yeah.
Currently there's a timer in this part, and we've gotten down to 5 days now, and I think it's about to shoot up quite a bit more.
Yeah, I think and whenever a timer is introduced in this series, it's usually right before the climax.
Was there another timer?
The only other one I could think of was Made in Heaven. For
Time of the New Moon. Yeah. That was good.
And Hayato, like he has to work against the clock to.
Yes, Hayato has to do his thing by like 8:10 a.m. or whatever.
Yeah, and then Part 5 has nothing. Part 3 has nothing. Part 2 has
the 33-day timer of Joseph.
Yeah,
but that's like a middle of the arc thing.
Yeah. So basically, every other arc has some sort of timer plot for the climax,
and it usually helps Araki really focus his plot. And I feel like it is now. Like, people are like, Jojolion will never end. Like, the ending arc is gonna be long, but we're approaching that ending arc for sure.
Where we're getting to the point where Valentine is getting on the train.
Yes, which means big things are happening.
Allbreaker number 2 win.
So this is our first time talking about Jojolion. Just to wrap up what's actually happening, and then we can kind of go back and catch up. So Joe has a really good theory on the Doctor stand, and I really love this one.
Yeah. So throughout the entirety of the arc, like we're essentially seeing them like these objects and things keep on getting right in the way of the of Josuke
And mostly Rai.
and Rai, like right before they can get to the doctor, and then it's revealed like when they hit something, they get these serious injuries on them, and they're really weird injuries too. Like they're not like consistent to what's happening.
He hits an umbrella stand, and then he gets a delayed injury where his legs get ripped apart, and they're only not torn apart because of doggy style.
Yeah, and then that happens later when I think it's a cigarette that gets flown out, and then it's like a needle prick.
It pierces his skin from a cigarette.
Yeah, and then so my theory for this is that the doctor can like store up potential injuries or injuries from other people into objects, and then when you hit that object, it ends up inflicting that injury onto whoever touches that object itself.
And it's an automatic stand. So it's kind of complex because it's also an automatic stand that only occurs if you approach him. If you start approaching him.
Green Grass Baby or whatever it's called.
Yes, Green Grass of Home or whatever. Another thing that happened is the girl in the arc with Tsurugi, the girl gets a big injury and the doctor was seen there.
Yeah, and it's mentioned like, oh, the girl had like no injuries at all basically, but she's like, you see her like wedged between this gate,
which is bizarre. But a really big one is Josuke has a cut on his hand, and Mitsuba reaches out towards the head doctor from a distance, so you could say it's a more minor wound because of its a range thing, but she gets a cut as well.
Yeah.
So, and that happens after the stuff with Josuke. So what if you store the cut from Josuke's hand, which might have happened naturally? We don't actually... From everything we see, it's something that could have happened naturally without him noticing. And he just afflicts that on Mitsuba because it's the same type of injury.
And then later, Josuke gets hit by a car and like blocks the car hit by bubbles. And then later, this guy walks up to him and tries to hit Josuke and blocks the guy with the bubbles, and the guy ends up like snapping his neck instantly.
And that's the one that really sold it. Like that is such a severe injury. It's possible that
it's also like impossible with anything that's happened.
Yeah,
like it's such a like, and it's not like, you know, he kind of got twisted around. It's like a solid like snap in a very distinct direction. Like
someone came into the hospital, and this is something that feeds into the theory. The head doctor works in the hospital. So if someone comes in with a cracked neck, he can naturally store it for later. And what happened probably was that Josuke transferred that effect from the bubbles, and then he blocked the punch with the bubbles and transferred it to the guy, accidentally possibly killing him.
Yeah.
So I like this theory. What will sell it from?
It probably will be.
Yeah, of course.
But
if
hopefully,
you could guess it, though.
I think it's a really, even like from what like not knowing what it is, it's a really cool like
idea
and like stuff that's happening to them. And it's such a cool fight because it's a chase scene, and they have to like, they get to a point it's like we literally can't touch anything flying at us or else we'll probably die.
And now I think everyone understands that, if anything, at least the base premise of the stand is that stuff flies at you as you approach. Everyone kind of understands that at this point, so we're getting pretty close to the full reveal, I think. The Black Blade stand is not this stand, though, and that is Toru's stand, because they have similar designs. Yeah.
Like, it's... yeah, it has to be, and I don't know what his stand would be. If it has to deal with touching somebody and like and changing their emotions, I would like to call it tainted love, because I think that'd be perfect for it.
That sounds pretty good.
Yeah. But I don't know. Like that's why I was saying like 3 possible stand name reveals, because we still have Kato, and they mention her. I was like, thank God he actually didn't forget her at all.
No, of course not.
And I don't know, man. There's so much like, this is a series like for a long time, other than like that I've been like, I really, really want to know what's happening. Like I'm really excited to see what happens next.
I think that's why me and Joe are enjoying it. Like we're so invested in the plot. Like I didn't want to read Jojolion monthly. I like to go in binges, but I'm so invested at the plot right now, and there's so much discussion on what's happening.
And every chapter is interesting. Like
yes.
Like in terms of the plot that's developing and like what's happening, and like they don't all end on cliffhangers, but it leaves you like hungering for more.
The cliffhanger with dead Norisuke and Tsurugi dragging his body was one of the biggest plot twists. Like that fucked me up.
Yeah.
Oh, my poor boy Norisuke.
Yeah, it's some good. Yeah, and I'm just very excited. I'm glad where Jojolion's going, especially because like for the first half of Jojolion, I was really kind of like it's a little bit like Diamond is Unbreakable, a little bit more like down to earth.
Mystery, slice of
It
life.
still is like that, but then like we're getting to a point now where my problem with Diamond is Unbreakable is that I feel like it takes a little bit too long to get to the point where you can see where the plot is going.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like in this, it has a good enough pacing where it sets up your family members or a good, decent chunk of your family members, and then it introduces what your main like kind of threat is.
Yeah.
Like we don't have a main antagonist, but we know what our threat is.
So a big theory that I've been throwing around for a long time is that there won't be a main antagonist, is that the final arc is going to be a big standoff with multiple parties, and it's going to bring back all of the Higashikata family members and Jobin and Tsurugi and Kato and possibly the head doctor and Toru.
Like I think it's going to come down to like three different like factions of like there's Jobin who's trying to do Jobin and Kato and reluctant Suguri who's who has their own like I think their plan is to use the Rukaya fruit to cure Suguri of his disease without killing Kato or Jobin because that's kind of the big thing right now.
Yeah.
And then we have the Stone Masons, the Stone people,
Stone Boys, who have been a prevalent threat. Joe? I got hit by a stand attack and my internet went down. But, Joe, you were talking about...
factions.
Factions. 3 factions.
Yeah.
Yes, and the Rock Boys.
Yeah, so yeah, there's essentially like, and with the Rock Boys aside, the Jobin's team and Josuke's team, like they're not really like in the morally wrong.
Yeah,
and that's back to like to Steel Ball Run 2, where you know our antagonist is doing something for the greater good, but is going about it in such a terrible, evil way. Meanwhile, Johnny is doing something that's very, very
selfish,
but is. And
he's also going about it the wrong way.
He's also going about it the terrible way, but he learns that that's not the way to do things.
Yeah,
that's his arc. So that's kind of like where I think we're coming to as well. I think we're gonna have like a 3-way Mexican standoff maybe.
And like Kato is really interesting because her philosophy's gone down to Jobin, and Jobin wants the power. Like he's he's one of my favorite JoJo characters at this point, probably like top 3 or 4. Where he wants the power to live a comfortable life. He wants his every day to be a summer vacation. So he had his villain speech the other day where he relates it back to strength, and it's definitely the kind of stuff that Kato teaches him. Where he can't in the stadium flashback too. He's like, "Dad, why aren't we trying to raise our family status? Why are we sitting in these crappy seats of this baseball game? Like this isn't a fun summer vacation. Like we need to be strong so we can live a comfortable life."
He is very much like his dad is very much like a kind of traditional thought of we do live a comfortable life. I mean, and to be fair, they do. Pretty much
they have a wonderful life.
Yeah,
but Jobin's definitely greedy. His main flaw is greed.
Yeah, Jobin feels like he can set himself up for more, and it's a class of like being humble and striving to be as best as you can.
Yeah, and because of that, it's like it's a fucked up goal, but it's also not like heinous and evil.
And it kind of it's the real life thing too, where like people of like CEOs and have a lot of money, they generally don't like 9 out of 10 times don't do it because they want to be filthy, stinking rich. They want to set like their other family members and their kids up for life of like you can be okay in life and not have to worry about like if shit hits the fan.
Absolutely. And they don't stop when they're comfortable. They keep getting money. Like they don't get when they're like, okay, I'm making $50 million, I can take a pay cut now and give my employees more. Like no, they're gonna keep the same percentage and make more money as the company does better.
Mm-hmm. And really kind of like it goes and like to them, like I can't blame a person for saying like my family comes first, and if I can give my family a better life and a more stable life, I'm going to do it.
Yes.
Like I can't, like if someone told me that's like I can't blame you for having that goal and that ideal. Like I get it.
And meanwhile, Josuke, ever since the halfway point, we could say, of Jojolion, he has a new goal, and he's gonna do whatever he can. He's gonna sacrifice himself for Holly, because Holly is his mother figure in both of Josuke's halves.
Yeah.
Both Kira and Josefumi have a really strong connection to Holly, so he feels this debt to her.
And that's kind of also how I feel like part 8 might be the last part, because I can't see how they can cure Holly without sacrificing someone else for her. You know what I'm saying?
I mean, Josuke is gonna die for sure, dude.
Yeah, but like the point of the series is it's a generational thing, so I don't know where that generation would go.
It can. I
What
guess
the-
we've seen the full tree. Maybe there's a son. There could be a bastard son.
Maybe they have a quickie and then Yoshu goes off somewhere else.
True. Yasuo could end the part pregnant. She's 19, 20.
Mhm.
She's of age.
Hot is a babe.
She's the best. She's best girl. She's like top 3 for me, character wise.
Balls. And like if you and Ragged can make that bullshit excuse like double the balls, double the sperm, double the kids.
Twins. Oh God, one of the twins would be Akira. Look at that.
And one would be like a Josefume. Yeah.
Shit. Another cool thing about Part 8 that I just like to think about is that Jotaro Kujo exists in this universe, and he was Yoshikage Kira. Just absolute mindfuck. He's in the same spot of the family tree.
And I think he blends. They blend a good portion of Kira and Jotaro together. I feel.
Yeah.
Yeah, Kira in like this part has a really standoffish but also caring point of view that
Yeah.
Jotaro has. Like he's very quiet. He chooses his words, but like
And
there's
he's an asshole
one
still.
yeah, and there's one scene that Kira like realizes what happens to Yashu, goes back to Yashu's house and kills the rock person thing.
Mm-hmm.
And like he doesn't mention it or anything, but he's like, I gotta take care of this, and goes and does it, and that's about it.
Speaking of that rock thing, it manipulated memories and emotions, which it came up in a weird. It came up like right before we started this arc, or right before we started Mitsuba's hospital.
Hold on, time out. Yashu mentioned that her and Toro like dated in high school, right?
Yeah.
And that's around when that event happened.
Yes, it is. No, she was. I think she was 13. When that event happened.
Maybe I don't know. Like, but then you kind of get the idea where like she can then like piece the points together, and that could be Taro's stand.
Because it is weird that is the most. I take it back. There's like. I was like, there's 2 mysteries in Jojolion, and it's the flashback man and the Jesus bite at the start.
Yeah.
But I guess this rock thing is another one because it got resolved, but the question is, why was it introduced?
Yeah. Other than for her to like,
it gave her a really good backstory, so maybe that's the why.
yeah, maybe. But
But
like
it could be feeding into something else.
yeah. But anyway, Jojolion. If you like JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, you should read Jojolion because it's got that bizarre part in it, like head on, like
really good fights, very non-traditional fights.
very non-traditional. It harkens back to part 4, which I really like,
Mm-hmm.
but still kind of has a lot of good like
Really
action
good story.
scenes, good stories.
Really good characters. Like I love so many of the characters in JoJolion. They make up so much of my top.
Lower tier for me is Joshu, but that's less of like he's a shitty character, and more of like he's just a shitty person, which makes him a good character.
And but then he has like arcs like Milagro Man, where like I feel like Araki is planning on doing something very interesting with Joshu, and I'm very excited to see.
I think one of the key things is there's going to be a point where there's going to be a line drawn, and it's going to be Jobin and his Jobin, Saguri,
And Kato.
on one side, and then Josuke and everyone else on the other one, and Yashu. Maybe Yashu's dead at this point. Maybe they
No, don't say these things.
But Joshu has to like make a choice of like who do I want to be, because he looks up to his brother, like he idolizes his brother, and they it's a very solid fact that they put it in when Jobin's introduced.
One other thing though is that he super doesn't get along with his mom, so she's gonna have to learn to manipulate him, which could happen.
Or anyone else in the family, really.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's but I feel like he's gonna play like a big part at the end in some way. Like
Yeah, for sure.
And we haven't seen him in a long time.
But we also like there's so much happening in Jojolion where like you just won't see a character for a while, but they're
Like-
gonna show up. Speaking of,
Yeah.
this was the big plot twist of this most recent episode chapter was Ojiro, the very first enemy we fought, the user of Fun, shows up again, and what he's talking about, he's talking to this lady who is his sugar mama, and and I didn't even recognize it was him until she stepped on his fake fingers.
Oh, I didn't either.
Which is he got quite the redesign, but it's cool to see him. And the mom is talking about the ritual of the Higashikata family because she's heard about it. She's a high class person, so there's probably rumors around town.
Yeah.
And Joshu is reminded of a time with Kira, who used to be
You mean
quote
Ojiro?
no, oh yeah, sorry, Ojiro is reminded of Kira, who used to be quote unquote friends with him. They know each other. Kira tortured the poor man.
Yeah.
And he relates hearing a similar story but with the fruit. So I feel like Araki's bringing that up so he can paint a very clear distinction between the ground ritual and the fruits.
Yeah.
Um,
And really solidify that it's the fruits that cause the combination thing and not the ground.
well, it's the combination of both that cause the combination because the grafted Rokakakaka is only special because it grows on walleyes, I think.
Oh, okay, yeah, that makes sense.
And I think the point of it is the grafted Rokakakaka lets you do the fusion without having to be underground.
Yeah.
Because aside from that, I don't see any differences with how Kato used it on Jobin and the child that she murdered.
Yeah.
Well, no, Jobin murdered the kid.
Joe murdered
Jesus,
child.
what a good fucking flashback.
Yeah, that was a great fucking like chapter. That's a one chapter injected. And it's like just perfect. Like, fuck. It explains everything for Jobin's motivation immediately.
Mother and child, man.
Yeah,
Lot of-
top tier kind of one chapter arcs.
Yeah,
So
a lot of people don't. A lot of people I've seen are like kind of meh on Jobin. They don't take him seriously, but that chapter sold him as a character for me.
same. Like because when you're introduced to Jobin, now we're getting to a Jojolion talk, and I feel like we should save it for later. But when you're introduced to Jobin, he comes off with this really weird nerdy dude who likes bugs and fruit.
Yeah.
And you're like, who the fuck is this guy? And yet beetle tendency.
Beetle tendency, so fucking good. But then you get to see his darker, more impulsive, greedy sides as well. Man, I love that guy.
He's a solid character. I think Mother and Child really sold for me that like this is everyone in Jojolion is great. The only kind of weak character is Ojiro and Kiyu, whoever Okiyasu's
Kyo.
yeah.
People really want Kyo to come back. So Ojiro comes back, right? So it might be to relate the ground and the fruit thing, but my theory is, and I've told you about this, he is Yuya Fungami from Part 4. He's going to be the old enemy who they bring back as an ally to beat another enemy.
Yeah, I think I also mentioned that too. I think we actually like said it almost at the same time we were texting each other.
Yes, which is a really fun idea because what's a way they could beat the head doctor? Well, he likes to be in hospitals, which are multi-floored, which is fun is a really complex to use stand, right?
It's a very neat. It's one of those very niche stands, which comes out for very fun encounters.
Yes.
But like in the vacuum, it's very weak.
So in a hospital with multiple floors, it's not that hard to place
Oh my
Ojiro on top of the doctor.
Like during the standoff, they put him on top of the roof of the Higashikata house, and they use him to like maneuver people around.
Jesus, we're setting ourselves for disappointment, man. It's
Yeah, I know.
It would be the best finale if it has that much stuff going on.
Araki, hire us. We'll be your writer.
Please,
assistant.
Araki. I
We'll
will
keep
also
you consistent.
I'll also make sure you don't make bullshit all the time. Maybe it's hard to control this man. So the fight's gonna become try to injure the head doctor so Ojiro can take over, and if Ojiro takes over, he can walk the head doctor right to them because now he's moving towards them and the stand won't activate.
Yeah,
How about that? Pretty
Yeah.
cool.
pretty cool nonsense. But hey, this is a great Jojolion bonus segment we didn't think we'd actually do. I just wanted to say, like, I really liked it, but we ended up getting way into it, which I'm
Well,
okay with.
it's the first time we've neglected it for too long, considering how good it is.
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah.
We just
but
gave up our whole nights for this one, but I hope people enjoy it.
I will. Final thoughts. If you're not reading Jojolion, go read Jojolion. Like it's just.
If you are reading Jojolion and you don't like it, stop reading Jojolion and restart it, or just wait till there's more chapters. But you should probably
Tell us
restart
what
it.
you think. Email us at roundaboutcast at
Roundaboutcast.com.
roundaboutcast@gmail.com and tell us why you don't like it, because I would love to like bring up those topics and just talk about them, because I feel like I think the majority of people really like this part, but I think some people have their minority nitpicks or dislikes.
It's
so
the
I think-
memers. They
But
just
I
want
feel like
more aura.
discuss and talk about them.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because I check the Reddit threads a lot, but I'd like to get a comprehensive thought on like people's thoughts on Jojolion. That'd be really interesting. All right. Hypothetical. Joe.
Yes.
Who do you think should have been king of Game of Thrones?
Ooh. Well, I was on Team No Throne, so
Me too.
That's answer choice number one. If I have to go with, I have to choose somebody. I think it would have been hilarious if Gendry got the throne again, because
We won't say very much because we're not technically in our Game of Thrones spoiler session, but okay.
Yeah,
That's kind of thematic.
yeah, because it you can then have the theme of like the wheel keeps on turning, and it just kind of repeats itself.
Okay, I like that. I would have gone for no one as well. And if it had to be someone, it would have been. I could go for Sansa, I guess. That works.
It could have been Davos.
All right, gang.
I
Hope you.
was turned out to be one of my favorite characters by the end of the show. But that's all I'm going to say for now. Good night, everybody. I hope
Good night.
everyone's fine.
4-hour episode hype.
Shit.